Chapter 908. Mu Ling'er was in Deacon Jin's hands. Where did Han Yunshi get the confidence to make such harsh demands? Deacon Jin chuckled and said mockingly, "Your Royal Highness, you really know how to do business." Han Yunshi sighed helplessly. "If I knew how to do business, I wouldn't make such a losing deal with you. I'm also doing this for Ning Cheng's sake." Fifth Elder was already stunned. Deacon Jin couldn't help but be angry. How was Han Yunshi asking for an exorbitant price? She was simply insulting him. "Your Royal Highness, what qualifications do you have to negotiate with me?" Deacon Jin pulled a long face. "Your indenture contract, of course." Han Yunshi looked at him blankly. "Deacon Jin, could it be that you're not satisfied with this princess's conditions?" Fifth Elder couldn't figure out if Her Royal Highness was pretending to be stupid or if she really didn't understand the situation. Deacon Jin also didn't know if Han Yunshi was pretending to be stupid or if she really was stupid. He said bluntly, "My indenture contract and 2 limitless gold cards. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about it." As soon as he said this, Fifth Elder sucked in a cold breath. Her Royal Highness was asking for an exorbitant price, but this Deacon Jin wasn't inferior either. Han Yunshi frowned and looked at Deacon Jin incredulously. Deacon Jin was indifferent and didn't budge an inch. Uncle Chung wanted him to extort more than just 2 limitless gold cards. Deacon Jin felt that his conditions were quite generous. Although he wanted 2 limitless gold cards, in reality, he only earned 1. The one in Mu Ling'er's hands originally belonged to him. The room was silent. Deacon Jin and Han Yunshi's eyes met, silently competing with each other. The atmosphere gradually became tense. "Deacon Jin, what if I say I can't do it?" Han Yunshi spoke first. "Then I'm sorry, I can't fulfill your request. Please leave." Deacon Jin said coldly. Han Yunshi nodded and smiled. "Okay, then I'll change my condition. I'd like to hear the details." Deacon Jin still gave Han Yunshi a chance. Cooperating with Han Yunshi was much easier than cooperating with Uncle Chung. "Then listen carefully. I'll only say it once." Han Yunshi became serious. "I'm all ears," Deacon Jin said. "Immediately hand over Mu Ling'er and make an inventory of all the accounts of the East Valley Private Bank. Hand them over to Fifth Elder, and this princess will spare your life. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the sun tomorrow." When Han Yunshi said this, Deacon Jin and Fifth Elder were stunned. Han Yunshi continued expressionlessly. "As for your slave contract, I'm very sorry, but you won't have any bargaining chips to redeem it in this lifetime." Suddenly, Deacon Jin jumped up from his seat and said angrily, "Han Yunshi, what nonsense are you talking about? If you think this princess is talking in her sleep, you don't have to take it seriously." After Han Yunshi finished speaking, she turned to look at Fifth Elder. "Let's go." Fifth Elder finally returned to his senses and hurriedly came over to push the wheelchair. Deacon Jin was about to stop him when he suddenly felt some pain in his calf. Alarmed, he touched the area of pain and found a golden needle. Deacon Jin was in disbelief. He never thought that Han Yunshi would be so despicable. If he had known that she would use such a despicable method, he definitely would have taken precautions. He understood that this woman didn't know any martial arts and only knew how to use hidden weapons to poison people. Her hidden weapons were hidden in her sleeves. "Han Yunshi, you actually used poison. You're despicable." Deacon Jin angrily rebuked. "Despicable?" Han Yunshi's lips curled into a cold smile. She ignored him and was pushed out of the door by Fifth Elder. The pain in his calf became more and more severe. Deacon Jin angrily warned, "Han Yunshi, if I don't see the sun tomorrow, Mu Ling'er won't see the sun tomorrow either." Finally, the anger that Han Yunshi had been suppressing in her heart all this time suddenly erupted. She said coldly, "Why don't you try? Don't forget that this is the 3-way black market." As soon as she finished speaking, a group of guards suddenly rushed in from outside and surrounded Deacon Jin. "Go in and search," Han Yunshi said coldly. Deacon Jin wanted to stop them, but Han Yunshi shot out several poisonous needles. Although Deacon Jin could withstand them, he calmed down and said unhappily, "Han Yunshi, I can agree to your conditions. Everything can be discussed in detail." It had to be said that Uncle Cheng's instigation had made him realize that Mu Ling'er was an excellent bargaining chip, but Han Yunshi's poisonous needles had utterly defeated him. Myriad Merchant Hall, Golden Wing Hall, and East Origin Hall were all part of the three-way black market. Although a mere East Valley bank was rich and imposing, it still couldn't be ranked. What's more, he was still a slave of Myriad Merchant Hall. Even if he won today, Han Yunshi deliberately made things difficult for him, so he wouldn't have a good life. Even if he had Mu Ling'er in his hands, did he really want to fight Han Yunshi to the point of losing his life? He wasn't clear about the relationship between Han Yunshi and Mu Ling'er, but judging from Han Yunshi's vicious, despicable, and shameless behavior, she might really sacrifice Mu Ling'er in exchange for the East Valley Bank. Deacon Jean didn't want to die in a foreign land at such a young age before he had even obtained his freedom. Han Yunshi waved a hand, indicating for the guards to withdraw. Actually, these were only her personal guards who'd accompanied her on this trip. They hadn't come prepared. Originally, she was only curious as to why Ning Cheng would release Mu Ling'er to the East Valley Bank, so she personally came to test Deacon Jean. She didn't expect Deacon Jean to be someone who refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. She sneered in her heart. When the chips were equal, she had never lost any negotiation except for that one time when she faced Bai Yanqing. Actually, everyone's chips were equal. As long as Deacon Jean insisted on not releasing her and used Mu Ling'er to threaten her, she wouldn't be able to hold on for long. She should be thankful that Deacon Jean wasn't that sly old fox Bai Yanqing after all. Once the guards withdrew, Han Yunshi coldly asked, "Where is she?" If she wanted to discuss in detail, she had to first see Mu Ling'er and confirm that she was fine. For her point of view, Deacon Jean wasn't a good person. If he dared to hurt Ling'er in the slightest, she would definitely make his legs suffer so much that he wished he was dead. "Help me detoxify the poison first," Deacon Jean requested. Han Yunshi narrowed her eyes. "Are you sure you still want to talk nonsense with me?" "Han Yunshi, there should be a limit to how much you can take advantage of a burning house. You're a woman, so don't use such despicable methods." Deacon Jean was genuinely dissatisfied with being tricked and casually complained. Han Yunshi originally didn't want to waste her breath, but when she heard this, she was enraged. She angrily retorted, "Deacon Jean, explain to me clearly. How am I taking advantage of a burning house? You were the one who directly suggested exchanging the East Valley Bank for your indenture agreement. Ning Cheng thought it was too little, so I added an additional condition for you to release Mu Ling'er. How is that not a limit?" Han Yunshi sneered. "Also, what do you mean by despicable? You kidnapped my little sister, and I asked you to release her, but you refused to release her. If you want to talk about despicable, then you're the one who's despicable first. You were poisoned by me, but that's because you're fine. Deacon Jean, you're a dignified man, yet you're holding a little girl hostage, and you're still talking to me about whether you're despicable or not. Is there any meaning to this? I haven't even scolded you, yet you're scolding me? Do you have any shame?" Deacon Jean was speechless, while Fifth Elder's heartbeat sped up. Both of them had long heard of this woman's reputation, but this was their first time seeing her in person. It really was an eye-opener. "Deacon Jean, I'm telling you one last time. Hand over Mu Ling'er, settle the accounts of the East Valley Bank, and hand them over to Fifth Elder. Then I'll give you the antidote. As for your indenture agreement, don't even think about it. We have nothing to discuss." Han Yunshi kindly reminded him again. There's still more than 2 hours before daybreak. Even if Deacon Jean was 100 times unwilling, he still had to admit defeat. "Someone, bring Mu Ling'er over," he reluctantly ordered. Very quickly, Mu Ling'er was brought over by an attendant. Han Yunshi originally thought that Mu Ling'er would have a pitiful look on her face, but who knew that this lass would be so well? She couldn't tell that she had been kidnapped at all. The moment Mu Ling'er saw Han Yunshi, her large, bright eyes were like searchlights, especially bright. However, the next moment, she realized that Han Yunshi was sitting in a wheelchair. "Han Yunshi, what happened to you?" She cried out in alarm and rushed over. "I'm fine." Han Yunshi didn't want to talk too much here. Mu Ling'er hurriedly squatted down and carefully examined her legs. She only needed to smell the medicine that Han Yunshi had applied to know that Han Yunshi's legs were broken. What happened? Who did it? Mu Linger asked angrily. Han Yunshi frowned as she looked at her. Her heart felt warm. It was rare for this lass to be so concerned about her. It's fine. Let's talk about it when we get back, she said indifferently. Fifth Elder wanted to push Han Yunshi, but Mu Linger beat him to it. She was full of questions, but she also knew that this wasn't the place to talk. Where's my antidote? Deacon Jean couldn't help but remind her. Settle the accounts and bring it over to Fifth Elder. I'll give it to you. Han Yunshi didn't even turn her head. Deacon Jean clenched his fists and stood there for a long time. Just as Han Yunshi was about to leave, he said coldly, Han Yunshi, don't you want to know why Ning Chung handed this lass over to me? Han Yunshi finally turned her head. Then tell me. Deacon Jean was about to state his conditions when Han Yunshi said, if you don't tell me now, I'll immediately go back and find your indenture contract and sell it to Gu. Deacon Jean had fought with Gu in the casino. If his indenture contract fell into Gu's hands, would he still have a good life? Deacon Jean gnashed his teeth in hatred and had the urge to bite someone. Han Yunshi turned her head. Linger, let's go. Ning Chung has designs on Medicine City's Mu family. Han Yunshi, don't think too much. Ning Chung isn't here, so you may not have full authority over the D clan. Deacon Jean finished speaking and turned to enter the room. Mu Linger narrowed her eyes. Belatedly, she realized that Deacon Jean had lied to her. He even said that he couldn't take her out of three-way black market, but he could take her to East Valley Private Bank and guarantee her safety. So it was all a lie. She had thought that he was quite kind these past few days and even wondered if she should return that limitless gold card to him. She didn't expect him to be jackalls of the same lair as Ning Chung. Too much. Mu Linger suddenly rushed over to the guest hall. Deacon Jin's back was facing outside. He was gloomy and was about to turn around when Mu Linger was already behind him. She suddenly kicked his butt. Deacon Jean didn't expect Mu Linger to return. He stumbled forward 2 steps and almost fell. Despicable, shameless liar. Just you wait. I'll make you pay the price. Mu Linger cursed angrily and turned to run. Deacon Jean hugged his butt and turned back to look. His face was completely black. Chapter 909. When Mu Linger ran back, Fifth Elder was persuading Han Yunshi. Princess, don't listen to his instigation. Fifth Elder, since it was Deacon Jean who instigated it, then don't mention this matter again when we return, Han Yunshi instructed calmly. Mu Linger didn't quite understand and didn't dare to ask on the spot. After returning to Myriad Merchant Hall and Fifth Elder left, Mu Linger hurriedly told her about how Ning Chung had forged the secret letter and how he had used Deacon Jean to trap Gu. Han Yunshi already knew what was going on and only nodded. Han Yunshi, did Ning Chung capture by Yanqing? Where is he? You mustn't let Ning Chung off. That guy is too evil. Everyone in the world thinks that he's the most loyal to Western Qin. I didn't expect him to do such a thing. Han Yunshi, why are you here? How did your leg get injured? Han Yunshi, Ning Chung. Han Yunshi interrupted Mu Linger and told her about the hostage situation. Mu Linger was stunned and looked at her in disbelief for a long time. Finally, she muttered, Han Yunshi, you're really daring. Do you really love Long Fei Yi that much? If it wasn't for deep love, how could she give in when it came to national enmity? How could she be willing to give each other a chance? Han Yunshi didn't say anything. She thought to herself that even if she hadn't transmigrated, even if she was a real Western Qin princess, she would still love Long Fei Yi and would still be so brave. Mu Linger was surprised and suddenly felt sad. She thought that if Qi brother knew the truth, he would definitely be very sad. How much did she love Qi brother to feel sad for him? Linger, I've sent people to Black Tower to find Gu. Don't run around before he comes back. Be careful, Han Yunshi instructed seriously. Okay. Mu Linger nodded. She stood for a while. She had so many things to say, but she didn't know how to say them. The two of them were silent. She felt awkward and said, Han Yunshi, it's late. I'll help you wash up and change your medicine. You should sleep early. Qi brother might be back when we wake up. Han Yunxi was wondering when Mu Linger cut her off. She immediately refused. No need, I have servant girls in my rooms. I still have something to do, and I won't sleep so early. You should go and rest first. Han Yunxi wanted to visit Tang Li alone. In about 2 hours, Deacon Jean should deliver the East Valley Bank's account book. She couldn't relax until she saw the account book. Although the East Valley Bank's wealth couldn't compare to the D clan's, it couldn't be underestimated. With this sum of money, Myriad Merchant Hall would have more confidence in dealing with the gambling house and the auction house. She thought that after this sum of money entered the account book, the other elders of Myriad Merchant Hall would more or less change their views of her. Only when the elders changed their views of her would she be able to start meddling in the gambling house and the auction house. Her agreement with Long Fei Yu was only 10 days. On the first day, she coincidentally took over the East Valley Bank. Han Yunxi began to suspect that perhaps she and Long Fei Yu wouldn't have to be apart for 10 days. If it were any other day, Mu Ling would definitely find an excuse to pester Han Yunxi. However, she still had an important matter to attend to tonight. She would soon bid farewell to Han Yunxi. Mu Ling didn't return to her room to rest. Instead, she went straight to East Origin Hall's auction house. A limitless gold card didn't have an upper limit, but it didn't mean that it didn't have an expiration date. When the card holder lost everything and couldn't pay off the debt, the limitless gold card would be canceled by the bank. Mu Ling wanted to spend money like dirt before Deacon Jean lost everything. She wanted to let him have a taste of his own medicine. How dare he join forces with Ning Cheng to put her under house arrest? While Mu Ling was spending money like crazy in East Origin Hall's auction house, Han Yunxi was already imprisoned in Tang Li's cell. Tang Li suspiciously sized up Han Yunxi and didn't say anything for a long time. Han Yunxi allowed him to size her up. She calmly pushed the wheel of her cell towards Tang Li and said, "If you keep looking, I'll tell your brother." You. Tang Li licked his lips. After a while, he asked in a low voice, "What's wrong with your leg?" "It's broken. It's almost healed." Han Yunxi was still quite comforted. At least the first thing Tang Li said when he saw her was to ask about her leg. Tang Li said, "Oh." After a moment of silence, he said, "Han Yunxi, don't you hate my brother?" The Grand Elder had told Ning Jing that when Ning Cheng was in trouble, Tang Li was listening at the side. He couldn't be sure of anything else, but he was sure that his brother had very willfully taken this woman to his side to protect her. Why would I hate him? Han Yunxi rolled her eyes at him. You are the princess of Western Qin, and he is the East Qin crown prince. Don't you hate him? Tang Li asked again. If he doesn't hate me, why would I hate him? Han Yunxi asked again. If he doesn't hate you, can you not hate him? Tang Li suddenly smiled. It's really simple. It's very simple. Han Yunxi asked back. Do you think it's not simple? A bitter look flashed in Tang Li's eyes. He changed the topic. Han Yunxi, then why are you here now? How could the D clan let you come here? If I said it, would you believe me? Han Yunxi asked. If my brother believes you, how could I not believe you? Tang Li asked back. Han Yunxi also became serious. Tang Li, then do you hate me? Tang Li immediately shook his head, but he quickly nodded again. Only, when he saw Han Yunxi frown, he shook his head again. Han Yunxi pushed him. You're so hesitant. Are you still a man? Tang Li asked back. Why would I hate you? My brother doesn't hate you, so it's useless for me to hate you. Han Yunxi laughed mockingly. I'm really blessed by Long Fei Yi. Tang Li rolled his eyes. Where's my brother? He knows I'm here. Why didn't he come to save me? What's going on with you two? Han Yunxi still did not answer and asked back. Tang Li, do you hate Ning Jing? Unexpectedly, Tang Li suddenly became impatient. He waved his hand and motioned for Han Yunxi to leave. Don't beat around the bush with me. If you don't let me go, then leave. Please help me pass a message to my brother and ask him to quickly come and get me out. Han Yunxi was about to speak when Tang Li stopped her. I'm telling you, next time you come here, don't mention the 2 words Ning Jing to me. Otherwise, don't come here. Han Yunxi's eyes flashed with suspicion, and she said lightly, Tang Li, you want to be alone, don't you? I don't. Tang Li suddenly became angry and denied it angrily. Han Yunxi was stunned at first, Then she burst out laughing. She was puzzled. Tang Li's attitude just now showed that he did not have any deep hatred for her. Why would Tang Li resent Ning Jing, the daughter of the D clan, when she was a Western Qin princess? She was not sure about other things, but she was very sure that the hatred of the Eastern and Western Qin family was not that strong in Tang Li's heart. Otherwise, Tang Li would not have been so talkative with her after knowing her background. As long as Tang Li did not reject Ning Jing's background, then Ning Jing could still be fought for, right? Although Ning Jing had told her not to mention their relationship in front of Tang Li, Han Yunxi still could not help it. She could not bear to see a stubborn woman like Ning Jing hiding her love and fighting alone. Love was a very heavy thing, and a person often cannot bear it. Seeing Han Yunxi smile, Tang Li flew into a rage out of humiliation. Han Yunxi, are you leaving or not? You don't want to be alone. Won't you be bored if I leave? This prison cell is too quiet. Won't you be bored? Han Yunxi asked with a smile. Tang Li was furious and said angrily, Go away. I want to be alone. You want to be alone? Han Yunxi played dumb and asked curiously, Jing. Finally, Tang Li flew into a rage and did not answer Han Yunxi anymore. Instead, he pushed her out of the prison cell and slammed the door shut. He wanted to be alone. Seriously enough. Han Yunxi was about to go back in when she saw the prison guard running over. Princess, Fifth Elder is waiting outside. He said that he has an urgent matter and wants to see you, the prison guard hurriedly reported. Han Yunxi temporarily ignored Tang Li and hurriedly went out. She saw Fifth Elder holding a bunch of keys in both hands and waiting respectfully outside the door. Your Highness, all the accounts of East Valley Private Bank have been sorted out and handed over to this subordinate. This is the key to East Valley Private Bank's treasury. East Valley Private Bank has not raised any debts or expanded into other businesses. As of tonight, the total amount of debt that has been loaned out is 56,330,000 taels, Fifth Elder reported truthfully. Han Yunxi sighed with emotion. The most profitable business in the world was indeed the business of making money. Although they had only lent out 56,330,000 taels, the interest of 56,330,000 taels was calculated daily, and the interest was extremely high. Where's Deacon Jean? Han Yunxi asked. These were sent over by him. He didn't come, Fifth Elder replied. Was it inconvenient for him to come over because of his leg injury, or was he afraid that seeing her would make him even more depressed? Han Yunxi very faithfully took out the antidote and handed it to Fifth Elder. She instructed, tomorrow at noon, summon First Elder and the others. I'll have a meal with everyone and learn more about the casino and the auction house. Fifth Elder respectfully accepted the order and left. Han Yunxi did not return to the prison. She thought that it was better not to force Tang Li and let it be alone. Ning Jing did not like her meddling, so she could not meddle too much. Seeing that it was almost dawn, Han Yunxi finally felt tired. She stretched and motioned for a maid to send her back to her room. She had to hurry up and tidy herself up and get some sleep. Otherwise, she would not have the energy to battle with the Elders' Council tomorrow. Han Yunxi was clearly very tired, but when she returned to her room, she could not fall asleep. She ordered a maid to prepare a hot soup. Since she could not sleep, she decided to take a bath and calm down to think about the casino and the auction house. What was the purpose of Golden Wing Palace? As far as she knew, Golden Wing Palace had been trading medicinal herbs all these years. There was not much conflict with Myriad Merchant Hall. Why did they have to compete with Myriad Merchant Hall so openly? After the maids prepared the hot soup, Han Yunxi dismissed them. She could already stand. If she did not care about the consequences, she could actually walk a few steps. It was not as inconvenient to move as before. She took off her clothes and carefully sat in the bathtub. Her feet were propped up on the edge of the tub so that they would not touch the water. The water was covered with pink Chinese roses. A faint fragrance rose in spirals with the steam and filled the air. Han Yunxi relaxed and did not have time to think about anything. But at this moment, a familiar voice came from behind her. Chapter 9:10. Han Yunxi, if I remember correctly, it's time for you to change your bandages today. Upon hearing this familiar voice, Han Yunshi hastily turned around to see Long Fei Yi standing behind her. She didn't know when, but his stern face was filled with displeasure. Han Yunshi looked at the door, then at the window. She discovered that the doors and windows were tightly shut. How'd this guy get in? One had to know that as her inner strength increased, so did her acuity. She was no longer as oblivious to the slightest movements in her surroundings as she was before. When Long Fei Yi was imparting his inner strength to her, he was also constantly training her ability to detect danger in her surroundings. She learned this kind of task very quickly. When did you get in? Han Yunshi asked. Long Fei Yi moved a chair over, took out the ointment, and sat beside the bathtub. He pulled on her well-proportioned, fair, and beautiful legs. Han Yunshi originally wanted to ask more, but when his large, rough hand held her smooth and delicate calf, she unconsciously stiffened. She only felt a tremor rapidly travel from her calf to the top of her head, causing her scalp to tremble. They had even touched more intimately before, but even now, she still couldn't withstand his careless touch. Han Yunshi thought, Long Fei Yi was a poison, an incurable poison. Just like the perplexing butterfly illusion. She had it, but she couldn't break it. She was already beyond cure. There was no saving her. Long Fei Yi lowered his head and lowered his eyes. With a serious expression, he helped her cut the gauze. Han Yunshi had questions to ask, but she couldn't bear to break his silence. However, Long Fei Yi quickly glanced over. If you're tired, then take a nap. I'll call you when I'm done. Han Yunshi's sleepiness had long been chased away by Long Fei Yi. She asked suspiciously, You've been waiting for me for a long time, right? The doors and windows were all fine. She hadn't heard any movement when she had just entered. The only possibility was that this guy had already snuck into her room and only came out now. Yes, Long Fei Yi admitted generously. You just... Han Yunshi was slightly angry. Why didn't you come out earlier? In other words, if he had come out earlier, she wouldn't have taken a bath. She would have seen everything. Han Yunshi said implicitly, but Long Fei Yi answered directly, I've already seen it. Han Yunshi didn't know how early Long Fei Yi was referring to. She knew that the earliest time they met was when they were at the hot spring pool near the battlefield. She didn't want to discuss this with Long Fei Yi at this time, so she immediately changed the topic. Aren't you going to see Chu Tianyin? Why haven't you left? I'm leaving tomorrow. I remembered that you didn't apply medicine on your leg, so I came over to take a look, Long Fei Yi replied. Oh, Han Yunshi glanced at him and was a little happy. I heard that you've taken over the Eastern Valley Bank. Long Fei Yi asked. You're well informed. Han Yunshi smiled helplessly. Presumably, there were still many people in Myriad Merchant Hall who didn't know about this. Do you know what Golden Wing Hall is trying to do? Han Yunshi asked. Do you want me to help you? Long Fei Yi asked. He could tell that if Han Yunshi wanted to control the D clan, she had to take over Myriad Merchant Hall first. Han Yunshi nodded without hesitation. If there was someone to help her, why wouldn't she? Pride and arrogance were unnecessary in front of Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi couldn't help but laugh. He thought that this woman would reject him without hesitation. Although he was laughing, Long Fei Yi still rejected her heartlessly. 10 days is the limit. I won't help you. He had already given in on this matter. How could he push Han Yunshi to the Western Qin camp? He couldn't do it. Stingy. Han Yunshi also laughed. Can you help with anything else? Long Fei Yi said seriously. Anything else? Han Yunshi quickly asked, What is it? Long Fei couldn't help but laugh out loud. I'll carry you up. Han Yunshi was stunned. Her face immediately reddened, and she couldn't speak for a long time. Long Fei Yi chuckled to himself. Although Han Yunshi declined again and again, Long Fei Yi still picked her up horizontally. Fortunately, she grabbed a bath towel to wrap around her body and cover her face. Long Fei Yi placed her on the bed. Han Yunshi quickly tidied herself up and wrapped herself in her nightgown. Long Fei Yi was well behaved. He didn't tease her anymore. Instead, he leaned against the bed and looked at her with a smile. Compared to her magnificent appearance, he preferred her helpless, panicked, and shy look. He was the only one who could see it. Han Yunshi glanced at Long Fei Yi, but her heart ached for him. She sat down on the bed and made room for him. It's almost dawn. Take a nap before you leave. She didn't know that he didn't plan to leave at all. She said seriously, you have to run around again tomorrow. Take the time to rest. Long Fei Yi lay down. Han Yunxi came over, held his arm, and snuggled up to him. Even she didn't know when she had become so dependent on this man. She thought that they would only see each other after 10 days. She didn't expect to be able to lean on him again after just one day. It was great. Originally, Long Fei had wanted to continue teaching Han Yunxi internal energy and even instruct her in acupuncture techniques. But when he saw her so lovey-dovey and lovey-dovey, he didn't bring up the subject of martial arts. He said calmly, go to sleep. I'll leave when it's dawn. Han Yunxi snuggled his arms. Feeling his familiar scent, she felt especially satisfied and safe. However, just as she was about to fall asleep, she suddenly remembered something. She looked up abruptly. Long Fei Yi, why do you think Tang Li hates Ning Jing so much? Maybe, Long Fei Yi said calmly. Tang Li had mentioned it to him when they were in Medical City. If he remembered correctly, it should be Ning Jing who hated Tang Li. You can tell too? Han Yunxi sat up excitedly. How could Long Fei Yi pay attention to this kind of thing? How could he tell? If he hadn't met Han Yunxi, he probably wouldn't have been able to handle his own relationship matters. Relationships were actually a kind of instinct. When you met the right person, this kind of instinct would be stimulated. If you didn't meet the right person, you probably wouldn't understand it for the rest of your life. Before Long Fei Yi could answer, Han Yunxi started to analyze seriously. Tang Li doesn't hate me at all. He has no reason to hate Ning Jing so much. He was drugged. Who wouldn't bear a grudge? Long Fei Yi retorted. Obviously, he didn't fully understand the hatred Han Yunxi mentioned. Han Yunxi misunderstood as well. If that's the case, then it's rather hateful. Han Yunxi muttered to herself. After a while, she said seriously, Long Fei Yi, I keep feeling that Tang Li and Ning Jing are a little interested. This time, Long Fei Yi answered clearly yes. You think so too? Han Yunxi was a little excited. It's not what I think. Tang Li told me before, Long Fei Yi replied. Han Yunxi was shocked. What did you say? Tang Li said that he likes Ning Jing. Unfortunately, Ning Jing still doesn't want to have children. Long Fei Yi was talking about Tang Li's original words in Medical City. Why didn't you say so earlier? Han Yunxi was surprised and angry. She hurriedly wanted to get off the bed. What are you doing? If you move your leg again, you won't be able to recover. Long Fei Yi reprimanded unhappily. I'm going to find Ning Jing. No, I'm going to find Tang Li. I have something very important to tell him. Han Yunxi said and opened her arms, wanting Long Fei Yi to carry her down the bed. Long Fei Yi glanced at her unhappily. Han Yunxi became anxious and put her arms around his neck. Long Fei Yi, this concerns your brother's marriage. Hurry up. Long Fei Yi almost took advantage of the situation and pushed her down, but he still carried her off the bed, put her in the wheelchair, and threw her clothes to change. Long Fei Yi, Ning Jing likes Tang Li. Ning Jing likes Tang Li. Han Yunxi completely ignored Long Fei Yi's dark face. She hurriedly put on her clothes and pushed the wheelchair out, leaving Long Fei Yi stunned. He had waited in the cell for a whole night, and this woman just left like that? However, for Tang Li's sake, Long Fei Yi could only let Han Yunxi go. Han Yunxi didn't know why she was so excited. She asked the maid to push her out. In a hazy sky, she left behind a figure that was like the wind. When Han Yunxi arrived at the prison, Tang Li was lying on a pile of straw and staring at the skylight in a daze. This was not the first time that he couldn't sleep until dawn. After being questioned by Han Yunxi, he couldn't sleep even more. When Han Yunxi was still far away, Tang Li heard the noise. He didn't expect Han Yunxi to come over. He only thought that it was the elders who secretly came to punish him. So, when Han Yunxi had already ordered someone to open the prison door and dismiss the maid, Tang Li still didn't look back. Han Yunxi looked at Tang Li's thin figure and couldn't help but laugh. Io, are you so haggard because of Yiling? Tang Li immediately turned around and looked at her. He was very surprised. It's you. Tang Li, is this the kind of person who wants to be alone? Han Yunxi said with a smile. Tang Li rolled his eyes at her turned back to face the wall. He closed his eyes and ignored her. How does it feel to want to be alone? Han Yunxi pushed the wheelchair into the prison. Tang Li couldn't be provoked, and he couldn't stand Han Yunxi using the word quiet to provoke him. He immediately stood up. I'll say it for the last time. I want to be alone. Do you want to be alone? He explained impatiently. An explanation is a cover-up, Han Yunxi said seriously. Before Tang Li could refute, she continued seriously. A cover-up is definitely interesting. Han Yunxi, what do you want? It's not even dawn yet. Aren't you bored? If you're bored, go find my brother if you can. Tang Li couldn't bear it anymore. Han Yunxi smiled, but didn't say anything. Tang Li said again, Han Yunxi, let me tell you. If it weren't for my brother, I would have thrown you out long ago. What do you want? If you have something to say it quickly. He had promised Long Fei Yi that if Han Yunxi didn't hate Long Fei Yi, he would help control the Tang sect's power. He really didn't expect Han Yunxi to be so free and easy. He also didn't expect Han Yunxi to be so capable. She could mix around with Long Fei Yi and openly come to the D clan's important place, Myria Merchant Hall. Why was it so easy for this woman to do these things? Why was it so difficult for him and Ning Jing? Han Yunxi cleared her throat and said seriously, All right, since you've already chased me out, I'll be straightforward. Tang Li, I'm here to tell you a secret. Do you want to hear it? A trace of suspicion flitted across Tang Li's eyes, but he looked indifferent. Say it or not. Ning Jing's secret, Han Yunxi tempted. Chapter 911. The word Ning Jing was like a curse to Tang Li, especially when it came from Han Yunxi's mouth. However, Tang Li did not get a headache when he heard it. Instead, his heart ached. It throbbed painfully and was extremely uncomfortable, but he had no choice but to listen to it. He could not ignore it. Tang Li pretended to cough lightly and replied impatiently, Han Yunxi, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't hold it in. I have a condition, Han Yunxi said with a chuckle. No way. Tang Li turned his head away. His thin and handsome face was full of arrogance. Call me sister-in-law, and I'll tell you. It's a big secret. Han Yunxi continued to tempt him. Tang Li had thought that Han Yunxi would come up with some tricks. He did not expect it to be so simple. However, even if it was that simple, he could not do it. Tang Li pursed his lips and did not say anything. Han Yunxi was full of interest and waited for him patiently. Their eyes met for a while. Tang Li finally awkwardly avoided Han Yunxi's gaze. Are you going to call me that? Han Yunxi asked. Tang Li did not say anything, nor did he refuse. Han Yunxi's lips curled into a contemptuous smile. If you don't want to call me that, then so be it. Goodbye. She pushed the wheel and prepared to leave, but Tang Li immediately cried out, Wait a minute. Han Yunxi was overjoyed. She stopped and waited. However, Tang Li said, Han Yunxi, if it's about Ning Jing, I'll have to trouble you to stop bothering me. Han Yunxi felt stifled. She immediately turned around and scolded. Tang Li, are you still a man? You don't even dare to say that you like a woman? Are you a coward? Let me tell you, Ning Jing has agreed to cooperate with me. She will help me take control of Myriad Merchant Hall and facilitate the cooperation between the D clan and the Long Fei Yi. We will definitely work together to deal with Bai Yanqing and find out the true reason behind the civil war in the Great Qin Empire. As Han Yunxi spoke, she turned around and approached Tang Li. Do you know why Ning Jing did this? Because like me, she hoped that the civil war back then was a misunderstanding. She hoped that there was no hatred between East and West Qin, because she wants to fight for a chance to love you. Tang Li was dumbfounded. Han Yunxi continued scolding. She's a woman. She has a sense of shame and self-respect. It's understandable that she doesn't dare to say that she likes you. But you're a man. Don't you even have this bit of courage? If you like someone, will it kill you to say it out loud? The secret I want to tell you is that Ning Jing loves you very, very much. Han Yunxi said loudly. Tang Li was still stunned and didn't say anything for a long time. If Han Yunxi's leg wasn't injured, she would definitely have kicked him hard. If you don't want to know this secret, then pretend that I didn't say anything. Goodbye. Han Yunxi was really about to leave when Tang Li suddenly shouted, Sister-in-law, Han Yunshi was about to go deaf from all the shouting. Fortunately, she had previously informed Ning Jing to bribe the jailers in the cell. When she came over, the jailers all retreated far away. Otherwise, Tang Li's sister-in-law would definitely betray all of them. Han Yunshi covered her painful ears and ignored him. Tang Li was extremely agitated and quickly pulled her wheelchair. Sister-in-law, what did you just say? Han Yunshi looked up at him. Tang Li, what did you call me? Tang Li was about to cry. Sister-in-law, I'm begging you. Have mercy on me. Ning Jing. What did she say? Han Yunshi was amused, angry, and distressed. Ning Jing loves you. She loves you very, very much. She told sister-in-law herself. Tang Li was really about to cry. His eyes were filled with tears. Really? Han Yunshi smiled helplessly. Sister-in-law would cheat anyone but you. It's true. I want to see her. Tang Li rushed out of the door like a madman. Han Yunshi let him do as he pleased. Tang Li really did run out of the cell. However, once he reached the dungeon door, he was stopped by a group of archers. He could only retreat. At this moment, he realized that although Han Yunshi could walk freely in Myriad Merchant Hall, she didn't have complete control over it. The group of archers at the door was not only to prevent him from escaping, but also to prevent Han Yunshi from secretly taking him away. You can't go out, but Ning Jing can come in. I don't know if she's willing to see you. Han Yunshi was telling the truth. Sister-in-law, tell Ning Jing, tell her. Tang Li thought for a moment. Tell her that the pear blossom in the storm has no heart, but I have a heart. Tell her to come here. I have something to tell her. All right, I'll think about it, Han Yunshi said mildly. Sister-in-law, Tang Li begged. Han Yunshi couldn't help but laugh. It had been a long time since she heard him call her sister-in-law in such a pleading tone. Tang Li, leave this to sister-in-law. Even if I have to lie to her, I'll help you trick her here. If you have anything to say, you can tell her yourself, Han Yunshi said seriously. Hurry, hurry. Tang Li couldn't wait. Han Yunshi left immediately. By the time she reached the outside of the prison, it was already dawn. Fifth Elder had sent people to look for her everywhere, and they just happened to find her here. Your Highness, the elders are already waiting in the main hall. The maidservant answered truthfully. So early, Han Yunshi was suspicious. She had no idea that last night, Fifth Elder had told the other elders about Han Yunshi swallowing up the East Valley Private Bank. All of them were stunned by the news, especially the head elder, who had called for a meeting early in the morning to discuss the matter. Myriad Merchant Hall was the D-clan's source of wealth, so it was essentially a place where money spoke. Han Yunshi had only used a single night to earn a private bank from Myriad Merchant Hall without any cost. Even if the elders were dissatisfied, they had to admit that they were a little more convinced. The situation at the auction house and the casino was getting worse and worse. When they were at their wits' end, they naturally wanted to hear what Han Yunshi had to say. Tell them I'm not feeling well and that I'll be there later. Tell them to get busy first. Han Yunshi secretly stuffed an ingot of gold into the maidservant's hands and asked, Is Ning Jing there too? Miss Jing hasn't arrived yet. First Elder has already sent someone to invite her. Miss Jing came back from the casino very late last night, so she's probably still resting. The maidservant answered in detail after receiving the ingot of gold. Han Yunshi immediately found another maidservant to push her to Ning Jing. No matter how important the matter was, nothing was more important than her younger brother Tang Li's marriage. Let the elders wait. Just as Han Yunshi was about to hurry to find Ning Jing had already woken up. Her 4-month pregnant belly wasn't obvious yet, and it didn't make her movements clumsy, but she was still very careful and private. In the past, she rarely ate breakfast when she was busy, but now, no matter how busy she was, she had to eat her fill. Despite First Elder's urging, she still stayed in her room and slowly ate her breakfast before leaving. Who knew that just as Ning Jing was about to leave the courtyard, Mu Ling was suddenly rushed in and bumped into her. Ah! Both of them screamed, but Ning Jing's screams were undoubtedly much louder than Mu Ling's. Ning Jing was knocked to the ground and fell on her butt. Mu Ling didn't fall, but her nose hurt. Her nose was sticky and seemed to be bleeding. Ning Jing supported herself with one hand on the ground, and the other hand hurriedly clutched her stomach. Her face was deathly pale, and she was so scared that her heart almost stopped. She was in a daze and didn't dare to look down. Ning Jing, are you all right? I didn't do it on purpose. I was being chased, and I came to find my older sister. Mu Ling, said as she helped Ning Jing up. But before she could help her up, she was stunned. She saw a pool of blood flowing out from under Ning Jing's body. Although Mu Ling was a virgin, but she was a pharmacist, and she knew this kind of common sense. She was so scared that she opened her mouth and wanted to scream. Luckily, Ning Jing covered her mouth in time. Ning Jing's voice was so cold that it was scary. She said in a low voice, Mu Ling, save my child, otherwise, I'll make you pay with your life. Mu Ling, hands were cold. Only then did she realize how big of a trouble she had caused. Ning Jing, you don't be angry. You let go of me, then I can save you. Mu Ling was so scared that her lips and teeth were trembling. She wasn't afraid of death, but she was afraid that this disaster couldn't be saved. Ning Jing covered her mouth with one hand and grabbed her arm tightly with the other. Her fingernails tore through her clothes and pierced in her flesh. She tightened her grip and didn't let go. She was even more scared than Mu Ling. Mu Ling was so scared that she didn't even notice the pain in her arm. She said anxiously, Ning Jing, calm down. You don't have time. Call the maidservant to send you into the room. I'll go get the medicine immediately. Believe me, I can. I can concoct a good medicine that will protect your child. Mu Ling didn't have any confidence at all. Without diagnosing the specific situation, how could she prescribe the right medicine? How could she concoct the medicine? However, as a pharmacist, no matter how flustered she was, she still had the most basic professionalism. She had to try her best to calm the patient down. A good mood was a good medicine. Mu Ling, send me in. Don't let anyone know that I'm pregnant, including the servants. Ning Jing said coldly. Mu Ling was shocked and blurted out, You're pregnant with Tang Li's child? When Mu Ling said this, she felt that she was stupid. If she wasn't pregnant with Tang Li's child, why would Ning Jing be so secretive? Shut your mouth. Ning Jing rebuked angrily. Mu Ling didn't dare to delay and said in a low voice, Ning Jing, you better not stand up. Otherwise, the child will be in danger. Bear with it. I'll carry you in. Mu Ling wasn't even as tall as Ning Jing, and she was much thinner than Ning Jing. How could she carry Ning Jing? However, this little girl's explosive strength was astonishing. She gritted her teeth and carried Ning Jing into the room, step by step, and laid her flat on the bed. After she carefully checked Ning Jing's pulse, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Ning Jing, the child can be saved. You must lie down. I'll go find a doctor outside and prescribe some medicine to prevent miscarriage. Judging from Ning Jing's pulse, she judged that it was not hopeless. However, she was not a doctor in this field, so she didn't dare to be careless. Ning Jing's tense nerves finally relaxed a little. She didn't dare to move, let alone get up. After Mu Ling poured some water for her, she immediately went to find the doctor and get the medicine. However, just as she reached the door, she saw Han Yunxi being pushed over by a maidservant. Han Yunxi was staring at the pool of blood on the ground with a suspicious look on her face. When she saw Mu Ling, she was even more puzzled. Ling, why are you here? Why are you in such a hurry? When the overly nervous Mu Ling saw her savior, she almost burst into tears. She gave Han Yunxi a look with teary eyes. Han Yunxi immediately understood and dismissed the maidservant. Mu Ling rushed over, her voice choked with sobs. Sister, I'm in trouble. Jing almost had a miscarriage. I bumped into her. I'll go find a doctor and get the medicine right away. Help me look after her. Don't let anything happen to her. Han Yunxi was stunned. Miscarriage? Mu Ling nodded vigorously. She finally couldn't hold back her tears. I didn't do it on purpose. Chapter 9:12. As soon as Han Yunxi heard the word miscarriage and looked at the pool of blood on the ground, she immediately shouted, Don't cry. Take me in, hurry up. Mu Ling was frightened. I have to go, hurry up. Han Yunshi shouted angrily. Mu Ling didn't have time to explain and hurriedly pushed Han Yunshi in. Ning Jing didn't expect Han Yunshi to come over. She asked Mu Ling angrily, "Where's the medicine? Where's the doctor?" Mu Ling was yelled at by these two women. She held back her tears and said, "Sister, I've checked her pulse. Ning Jing's baby can be saved. She urgently needs to take the medicine to prevent miscarriage. I said to find a doctor to be on the safe side." "What kind of medicine do you need?" Han Yunshi asked. Mu Ling quickly listed a few medicinal herbs. Han Yunshi directly took them out from her medical bag. To be exact, she took them out from the detoxification system. The medicinal herbs that Mu Ling listed were very common. She still had them in stock in her detoxification system. They were just used to make antidotes. She didn't expect that there would be a time when she would use them to make medicine to prevent miscarriage. Mu Ling and Ning Jing were very curious, but they didn't have time to ask. After Mu Ling confirmed that the medicinal herbs were correct, she immediately went to make the medicine herself. After Han Yunshi confirmed that Ning Jing was fine for the time being, she hurriedly went out to get rid of the pool of blood in the courtyard. After she came back, Ning Jing stared at the ceiling in a daze. She didn't know what to think. Han Yunshi sighed. She didn't know how she would tell Tang Li if something happened to Ning Jing today. Han Yunshi sat for a long time without saying anything. Ning Jing opened her eyes and looked over. Han Yunshi. Han Yunshi glanced at her and said nothing. Han Yunshi, you must think I'm ridiculous, right? Ning Jing asked with a bitter smile. Han Yunshi suddenly said coldly, "You're despicable. How could you hide such a big thing from Tang Li?" Ning Jing's eyes flashed with bitterness. She didn't want to explain anything. She turned her head and didn't say anything. Han Yunshi was also silent. Very soon, there were many things that needed to be told to her personally by Tang Li. After Mu Ling brought the decoction, Han Yunshi went out to find a doctor. When she brought the doctor over, Ning Jing had already taken the medicine and fallen asleep. The doctor examined her, looked at Mu Linger's prescription, and added some medicine. He said that although the child was saved, Ning Jing had to stay in bed for a month. After sending the doctor away, Mu Linger finally broke down and cried softly. "Sister, I didn't do it on purpose. I really didn't do it on purpose." Han Yunshi then realized that Mu Linger had called her sister. Looking at Mu Linger's teary eyes, Han Yunshi felt helpless. "What's the use of apologizing to me?" "Sister Mu," Mu Linger cried even louder. Han Yunshi immediately muffled her mouth. "Can't you be quiet? Ning Jing needs to rest." Mu Linger didn't dare to make a sound. She widened her teary eyes and looked pitiful. She didn't even realize that she had called Han Yunshi sister several times. Han Yunshi asked calmly, "What are you doing here?" Mu Linger then remembered something else. "Sister, I got into trouble." Han Yunshi was shocked. "What is it?" "I was hunted down by Deacon Jean," Mu Linger said timidly. Han Yunshi was even more shocked. What exactly happened? Only then did Mu Linger tell him the whole story. Last night, she had gone to East Origin Hall's auction house to squander money. In one night, she'd spent 300 to 200 million taels to buy up all the items from last night's auction. She had just arrived at Myriad Merchant Hall's entrance this morning when she bumped into Deacon Jean. Deacon Jean wanted to kill her. Fortunately, she reacted quickly and escaped in time. Deacon Jean didn't dare to chase after her. It turned out that Deacon Jean had handed over the East Valley Private Bank to Fifth Elder last night and was penniless. The news had only spread this morning, and the private bank didn't have time to block his limitless gold card. Simply put, because of her extravagant spending last night, the originally penniless Deacon Jean now owed a debt of more than 200 million. 200 million was just a night's worth of gambling for the Deacon Jean of the past. But to the current Deacon Jean, it was an astronomical figure. Even if he wanted to pay with his life still belonged to Myriad Merchant Hall. Han Yunshi was originally a little angry, but when she heard Mu Linger's explanation, she almost laughed out loud. She didn't expect Mu Linger to be so good at cheating others. No wonder Deacon Jean wanted to kill her. Deacon Jean owes a buttload of debt. Han Yunshi muttered to herself, seeming to have thought of something. Sister, I didn't expect things to blow up so big. Mu Linger had only wanted to take revenge on Deacon Jean. She didn't expect to cause Deacon Jean so much trouble. Although a private bank that issued limitless gold cards wasn't like an underground bank like the East Valley Private Bank, their methods of forcing people to repay their debts were still very frightening. From now on, Deacon Jin's days wouldn't be easy. Sister, why don't I sell off the things I bid for a cheap price? Let him repay as much as he can. Mu Linger was ultimately kind-hearted. No need. Let him be anxious for a few days. Han Yunchi said calmly. She already had a plan in mind. Deacon Jean was from the Winter Crow tribe and should know the Winter Crow language. Perhaps this guy would be the key to her turning the tables in Myriad Merchant Hall. Linger, stay here and take care of Ningjing. You must keep this a secret, understand? Otherwise, Ningjing will never forgive you, Han Yunchi said seriously. Mu Linger nodded vigorously. Only then did Han Yunchi leave, reassured. She pondered how to get Tang Li out of the prison cell to take a look at Ningjing as she walked toward the conference hall. The elders in the conference hall were already impatient from waiting. Uncle Chung was also present. He hadn't even found Deacon Jin's indenture contract before Han Yunchi beat him to it. He had to admit that he admired this woman's ability. It was a pity that this woman's heart was with Long Fei Yi. Otherwise, she would definitely be able to lead the D clan in their great cause of reviving Western Qin. Although Uncle Chung didn't gain any benefits from the Deacon Jean incident, he still concealed himself without batting an eyelid. He knew that Han Yunchi wouldn't be able to settle the disturbance at the auction and casino no matter what. As soon as Han Yunchi arrived, all of the elders rose to their feet. After making their salutations, the head elder said, "Someone come, go see if Miss Jing's almost here. Tell her that the princess is already waiting." "No need. I sent her to the casino," Han Yunchi said calmly. First Elder wanted to ask more, but Han Yunchi beat him to it. "First Elder, tell us about the situation at the auction." "Yes." First Elder stood up and reported the situation in detail. The disturbance at the auction stemmed from a fake item. The item was indeed fake, but it wasn't forged by the auction. Instead, a mole had planted the fake item and exchanged it for the real item. The business of the auction house was most afraid of fake goods. The customers took advantage of this and demanded a high compensation. "Then compensate them. Give them as much as they want," Han Yunchi said. "We've already promised to compensate them tenfold, but that customer not only wants tenfold compensation, he also wants the real item." First Elder was in a difficult position. "Princess, that mole still hasn't shown himself, and the whereabouts of the real item are unknown. Where are the origins of this guest?" Han Yunchi asked. "He's a wealthy merchant from Western Zhou who trades in tea leaves," First Elder replied. "He has a group of companions who block the entrance of the auction every day. If they don't leave, the auction will never be able to open again." Han Yunchi nodded and asked, "What's the situation at the casino?" "Uncle Chung is handling everything at the casino." As soon as First Elder finished speaking, Uncle Chung hurriedly stepped forward and reported the situation at the casino. The situation at the casino was 100 times worse than at the auction. Ever since someone exposed the casino's dealer for cheating, the gamblers occupied the casino and refused to leave. Several gamblers demanded the casino compensate them for the money they lost over the past 3 years, plus interest. This was still considered a small matter. A few gamblers didn't want any compensation at all. Last night, they brought a group of servants to smash up the casino, declaring that they would smash it up for as long as Myriad Merchant Hall's casino was open. "Servants," Han Yunchi snorted. "A group of servants can smash up the casino? Are the guards useless? Are they raised for nothing?" Uncle Chung hurriedly explained, "Your Highness, at this juncture, if we use force, will be even more in the wrong. That's why I didn't stop you. I've already punished the dealer, but the Golden Wing Palace has publicized all their tricks. Not to mention our casino, even East Origin Hall may not be able to continue operating. Other than those troublemaking gamblers, Most of the gamblers in the black market are dead. A cold sneer flashed across Uncle Cheng's eyes. He asked anxiously, "Your Highness, the casino and auction are Myriad Merchant Hall's most profitable places. What should we do now?" The military camp sent a letter the day before yesterday, asking Myriad Merchant Hall to transfer silver to prepare military supplies for the winter. Also, a few spies from the Northernly Chamber of Commerce have come asking for silver. Now that the Northernly Chamber of Commerce is electing a new president, we need a lot of silver to smooth things over. After Uncle Cheng finished speaking, everyone fell silent. They all looked at Han Yunshi, waiting for her to come up with a plan. The Myriad Merchant Hall's Elders Guild had seen all kinds of storms, and they weren't to be trifled with. However, at this critical juncture, they all had to be cautious in the face of such a troublesome storm. No one dared to take the risk. After all, if this storm wasn't dealt with properly, Myriad Merchant Hall's source of income would be cut off, and the military supplies on the battlefield would be replenished. If it were any other time, they could still replenish their supplies. However, at this critical juncture, they needed to have enough funds to deal with a war that could break out at any time. Han Yunshi was silent for a long time, then finally made a shocking decision. She said, "Pass down the order to close the casino." "No." Uncle Cheng was the first to stand up. After that, other than the fifth elder, the other four elders also stood up. Although they didn't say anything, their thoughts were the same as Uncle Cheng's. "Then do you have a better idea?" Han Yunshi retorted. "Your Highness, please forgive this subordinate for speaking bluntly. Your idea can't be called an idea. Once the casino closes, we'll lose one of our sources of income. Now that we're short of silver everywhere, let's just say—" Before Uncle Cheng could finish, Han Yunshi cut him off coldly. "Uncle Cheng, I'm very sorry. The casino source of income has already been cut off." It had to be said that Han Yunshi was speaking the truth. If the casino continued to operate, it wouldn't be able to make a profit. No one even gambles in East Origin Hall's casino, let alone here. Han Yunshi retorted, "Won't it cost to continue operating? Have you calculated how much it costs to operate those large casinos for a day? Don't we have to pay for the servants, the dealers, and the venue? Even the lights inside cost money." The entire place was silent. No one could refute her words, but no one was convinced either. Even the fifth elder, who obeyed Han Yunshi's every order, couldn't bear to close the casino. Rather than wasting resources, why don't we take advantage of these opportunities before others discover them? Han Yunshi asked again. No one understood. Who knew that Han Yunshi would say, "After closing the three-way Black Markets casino, we'll open a few large casinos under our own names in the nearby county. Gambling is a thing that addicts can never get rid of." Chapter 9:13. Close down the three-way Black Markets casino, conceal their identities outside the three-way Black Market, and open another casino. Han Yunshi's move was called "No Construction Without Destruction." Hearing Han Yunshi's explanation, everyone felt enlightened and enlightened. This was a very simple method, nothing more than a little trick in the business world. But why couldn't their brains wrap around it? Why couldn't they figure it out? The three-way Black Markets casino had already been ruined by Golden Wing Palace. Even if they tried to salvage the situation, with Golden Wing Palace's attitude, they would definitely continue to look for trouble. Any business was afraid of being found trouble. Rather than wasting time and money here, they might as well change their position. Han Yunshi was right. People who were addicted to gambling would never be able to quit. In other words, they would never have to worry about not having business. Now that the three-way Black Markets casino was not trusted, those gamblers might be even more anxious than the casino owners, unable to find a suitable place to gamble. If they could seize the opportunity and find a suitable place to reopen the casino, it would definitely attract a lot of gamblers. This way, the casino's income would not be cut off. All the elders looked at each other. Although some of them had a grudge against Han Yunshi, they could not help but approve of her idea. Uncle Cheng rubbed his hands and thought for a moment before asking seriously, "But Your Highness, now that the dealer's tricks have been exposed, how are we going to continue playing?" Han Yunshi bluntly reprimanded, "Uncle Cheng, you're wrong. Any business must pay attention to the word credibility. Without credibility, no matter how big the business is, it will still be exaggerated. Thousand Gold Hall is an example. The moment she said this, First Elder hurriedly explained, "Your Highness, the dealer's rules are not only in our casino. All the casinos in the world are like this. If we don't do this, how are we going to make such a high profit?" Han Yunqi smiled. "Then let's do the opposite." First Elder wanted to explain, but Uncle Chung hurriedly said, "What brilliant idea does your Highness have? This subordinate is all ears." If casinos did not follow these unspoken rules, they would not be able to make such high profits. Without such high profits, they might as well do other business. Uncle Chung admired Han Yunqi's idea of opening another casino. He was worried that he couldn't refute her. Now he found his weakness. He liked to see what kind of brilliant moves Han Yunqi could come up with. Who knew that Han Yunqi would say something shocking again? She said, "We only provide the venue and services, not the host. If the gamblers want to play host and dare to play host, let them do it." The casino adopted a membership system, and the members had to go through a strict asset inspection. Those with a net worth of less than 300 million would be rejected. If the loser reneged on the bet, the casino would be responsible for collecting the debt. Therefore, the casino would take a 30% commission from the winner and waive all the fees for the loser. However, the participants would have to pay a membership fee every year. Also, we'll hire new dealers, all of them new faces. They'll be in charge of supervising every game. If anyone is caught cheating, they'll have to pay 10 times the compensation and be banished from the casino forever. Han Yunqi had only given a rough idea, but it left everyone gaping. After all, for thousands of years in Cloud Realm Continent, the casino had always been the host. No one had ever played like this before. It wasn't common for the dealers to cheat in every game, so the casinos would make losses and profits every day. Only after a month's worth of transactions would they make a profit. But Han Yunqi's idea was to make money every day. No matter who won or lost, someone would always win. As long as someone won, the casino would get a cut. Moreover, Han Yunqi had limited the qualifications of the participants. Anyone with a net worth of 300 million or more was a rich man, so the chips for each round wouldn't be low. Everyone present was an old hand in business, so Han Yunqi only needed to give them a rough idea before they could sniff out all sorts of business opportunities from this model. The profits from this model weren't limited to just commission and membership fees. There were many other things that could be done, such as custom-made private rooms, servants, and even restaurants and inns. Good. Your Royal Highness's idea is excellent. The head elder couldn't help praising. The other elders all nodded their heads in agreement. They couldn't wait to discuss all sorts of ways to make money. Uncle Cheng's gaze was complicated. He had no choice but to give in. Still, he wasn't willing to give up and threw out another difficult problem. Your Royal Highness's idea is good, but what? Uncle Chung, feel free to speak. Han Yunqi's attitude was excellent, but her eyes were filled with suspicion. She was sharp to begin with, and with all sorts of people making things difficult for her over the years, she sharply sensed Uncle Cheng's hostility after a few words from Uncle Chung. When it came to business matters, the elders should be more sensitive than Uncle Chung. However, while they were all immersed in joy, Uncle Chung was very clear-headed and repeatedly asked her a few key questions. Why was that? Moreover, if she remembered correctly, Uncle Chung was the closest person to Ning Chung and knew almost everything about Ning Chung. He must know the truth about the hostage situation. When she was confronting Ning Jing and the head elder, where was Uncle Chung? Why didn't he speak up? What was his attitude? It's just that, with a net worth of 300 million, the number of gamblers attracted is small. The overall profits won't be as much as before, Uncle Chung said seriously. At his words, the head elder hastened to add, "Don't worry about that. As long as we open another casino and lower the bar, we'll still attract plenty of gamblers. Her Royal Highness's idea is that we don't have to play host to the casinos. Uncle Chung, three-way black markets casinos are the wind vane of Cloud Realm Continent's casinos. Whatever winds blow here, there's bound to be big waves outside. I'm sure news of the cheating has already spread to all the casinos by now. Now that this bowl of rice isn't tasty, how can we recover our past profits so quickly? We have to strike while the iron's hot and seize the time to open a casino. If we use the cheating scandal to make a fuss, we'll definitely get the upper hand. Uncle Chung pursed his lips, unable to retort. Even the head elder had spoken against him. So what else could he say? Leaving aside everything else, Han Yunshi had already won the Council of Elders' hearts over the matter of the casinos. Han Yunshi's eyes flashed craftily. Uncle Chung, I'll leave the matter of opening another casino to you. You have to seize the time. If you mess it up, it'll be hard for you to explain yourself to Ning Chung when he comes back. Uncle Cheng's heart gave a lurch as he glanced at Han Yunshi, then averted his eyes in panic. Did Han Yunshi see something? Was she warning him? He had his eyes on the casinos to begin with, but Han Yunshi just had to give him full responsibility. What else could he do? In the end, he'd end up tormenting himself. Uncle Chung realized in hindsight that he'd underestimated Han Yunshi too much. Now he could only place his hopes on the auction house. Han Yunshi had given him the casinos, but she couldn't just leave the other elders to the side and give him the auction house as well. As long as the auction house wasn't given to him, he didn't need to be responsible for it, and he could play some tricks. Yes, I'll do my best. Uncle Chung endured for the time being. Then you should hurry and find a place. Han Yunshi's tone was still very polite. Uncle Chung originally wanted to stay and listen to how Han Yunshi would deal with the storm in the auction house. Who knew that Han Yunshi would send him away like this? He could only withdraw first and come back to inquire about the auction house in detail. The storm in the auction house was that the real item had been replaced with a fake by a trader. The buyer not only demanded compensation, but also demanded the return of the real item. Elders, what do you think about this matter? Han Yunshi asked. Your Highness, I suspect that the buyer colluded with the trader. We've already proposed a compensation of 10 times the auction price. Generally speaking, customers won't refuse, Second Elder said seriously. This subordinate has the same opinion. This seller is most likely from the Golden Wing Palace. Your Highness, this incident in the casinos and the auction house is too strange. It's just a coincidence. Third Elder immediately echoed. Han Yunshi had long suspected it, but she couldn't figure it out. Why would Golden Wing Palace target us? Harming others without benefiting themselves? We've always minded our own business with Golden Wing Palace. There's no conflict between us, First Elder said helplessly. He had already discussed this matter with the other elders more than once. Han Yunshi was very decisive. Since we don't know the reason, then we'll give them a taste of their own medicine. Tie up the buyer and interrogate him properly. Absolutely not. First Elder immediately stopped her. Now, the whole three-way black market is talking about this matter. Tying someone up at this juncture will inevitably provoke criticism. Selling a fake item in the auction house is already a bad thing. If we tie up the buyer, who will dare to do business with us in the future? Tie him up, then send out specialized people to look for him with great fanfare. Throw the dirty water back at Golden Wing Palace. Han Yunshi said coldly, You must always remember that history books are written by people, and public opinion is spoken by people. History books are like this, the winner takes all, and public opinion is like this, whoever has the loudest voice is in the right. Once something happened in Thousand Gold Hall, Golden Wing Palace immediately hit us when we're down. It's clearly a provocation. I don't believe that no one suspects them. Using black to fight black, this was Han Yunshi's principle all along. It had to be said that everyone had a new understanding of Han Yunshi. They didn't expect her to be not only smart, but also ruthless and decisive. If this woman was born a man, she must be extraordinary. However, even if she was a woman, she wouldn't lose to a man. Perhaps she really had the ability and courage to truly lead the Western Qin camp. As for the auction house business, First Elder doesn't need to worry. I have ways to attract buyers. Seeing him hesitate, Han Yunshi continued, I'm sure everyone has seen the East Valley Private Bank's accounts by now. That's enough money to support Myriad Merchant Hall for a year and a half. It's more than enough to pay for the D-Clan soldiers and all sorts of expenses. Someone's already provoked us to our doorstep. Are you willing to swallow your anger? Where's Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's domineering air? Her words roused the fighting spirits of all the elders. Fifth Elder was the first to step forward. We'll listen to everything your highness says. Afraid that Fifth Elder would win Han Yunshi's favor and replace him, Head Elder didn't hesitate to step forward. Your highness is wise and brilliant. If Han Yunshi knew that Golden Wing Hall was one of Gu Qixiao's businesses, how would she react if she found out that Gu Qixiao had tricked Myriad Merchant Hall just to avenge her? Han Yunshi had Fourth Elder and Third Elder assist Uncle Chung, while Head Elder and Second Elder took charge of the auction house. Fifth Elder remained behind to coordinate the various affairs of Myriad Merchant Hall. After the meeting adjourned, she instructed Fifth Elder in a low voice, "Find those gamblers who caused a ruckus at the gambling house and tie them up as well. I have to make them give up Golden Wing Palace." After that, Han Yunshi hurried to Ning Jing's courtyard. She was vexed. Just how was she supposed to get Tang Li out of jail? Chapter 9:14. When Han Yunshi arrived at Ning Jing's room, she saw Mu Ling concentrating on making medicine in the study. "What are you doing?" Han Yunshi was puzzled. "I'm trying to find a way to mix these two prescriptions so that Ning Jing can better absorb the effect of the medicine and reduce the effect of the medicine on the fetus," Mu Ling said seriously. "How is she?" Han Yunshi asked in a low voice. "She didn't say anything for most of the day. I didn't dare to talk to her." Mu Ling said and asked in a low voice, "Sister, are Ning Jing and Tang Li really in love with each other? If they don't love each other, how can they have a baby?" Han Yunshi asked. Mu Ling nodded bitterly. "Sister, is there any news about Chi brother? He Lu is only half a day away from here. Why hasn't he come back yet?" If Mu Ling didn't ask, Han Yunshi would have been so busy that she forgot about it. "You should be back. Didn't you find him?" Although she and Long Fei Yi came back in advance, the people of the D clan and Long Fei Ye's shadow guard were still tracking by Yu Qiao's whereabouts near Yu Mountain. If Gu went there the day after the explosion of He Lu, you should have met those guards. "Chi brother will definitely go there," Mu Ling said. Suddenly, she was shocked and grabbed Han Yunshi's hand. "Sister, will Chi brother be okay?" Han Yunshi was also a little worried. She hurriedly ordered the attendant to ask the Fifth Elder to send more people to look for him. "Do you want to go in with me and see her?" Han Yunshi asked. Mu Ling was still full of guilt and didn't dare to face Ning Jing. "Sister, you go in by yourself. I just saw her." Han Yunshi didn't feel embarrassed. When they were far away, she looked back and said with a smile, "Girl, you call me sister so smoothly." Then she smiled proudly and gently brushed her bangs. She turned and walked into the room, leaving Mu Ling stunned. Mu Ling realized that she had called her sister for 2 days. As soon as Han Yunshi came in, Ning Jing immediately asked about the casino and the auction. "Why don't you ask me about Tang Li?" Han Yunshi asked. "Don't mention him. You should know that the auction and casino are your only chance." Although Ning Jing's body recovered slowly, her spirit recovered well. Han Yunshi told Ning Jing the details of today's meeting. Ning Jing was silent for a long time and finally gave a thumbs up. "Han Yunshi, you're good. It was a pity that Mu Ling didn't come in. Otherwise, Mu Ling would definitely cry." Although she didn't know how Chi brother planned to scheme against Ning Chung, she knew that the master of Golden Wing Palace was Chi brother. Of course, if Gu was in the three-way black market at this time, he might have given Golden Wing Palace to Han Yunshi. What was the point of fighting? Could Golden Wing Palace be the property of the Feng clan? Ning Jing asked suspiciously. No. If the Feng clan had Golden Wing Palace, Jun Yixia wouldn't be short of soldiers' pay, Han Yunshi said seriously. One of the many measures that the Northern Dynasty's emperors took to control Jun Yixia was to withhold all the soldiers' pay. The 30,000 horses that had arrived, the 30,000 horses that were on the way, and the 30,000 horses that were about to set off were all served with real money. I suspect that your brother might not have fallen into Bai Yanqing's hands. Otherwise, Bai Yanqing and Jun Yixia wouldn't have waited for death. They would have threatened him long ago. Han Yunshi analyzed seriously. Then where can Bai Yuqiao take my brother? Not only did Ning Jing not understand, but Han Yunxi also didn't understand. How could they have thought of the gap between Bai Yanqing and Jun Yixia? They also didn't know to what extent Bai Yuqiao would worsen this master-disciple relationship. Han Yunxi and Ning Jing chatted like this. Ning Jing didn't want to talk about Tang Li, so Han Yunxi didn't mention it either. She always hoped that Tang Li could personally tell Ning Jing his sincerity instead of her. Moreover, if she told the truth now, if Ning Jing didn't listen to her and insisted on going to prison, then she would be the one to blame. As they chatted, Han Yunxi casually asked, Ning Jing, what do you think of Uncle Chung? He's my father's attendant. After my father passed away, he has been following my brother. In the D clan, he is the only one who dares to talk back to my brother. Han Yunxi asked tentatively. Then, about our cooperation. Before she could finish speaking, Ning Jing interrupted. You can't tell anyone, especially him. Han Yunxi, can the people who follow my brother not be as stubborn as him? If you want to control the D clan, then you have to control Uncle Chung first. Han Yunxi nodded, knowing what to do. You rest for now. I will go out and put on a show later. Just say that you suddenly fainted at the casino and overworked yourself. The doctor said that you need to rest in bed for a while. Han Yunxi instructed in a low voice. I will make the proper arrangements for the doctor and maidservants. You can rest assured and rest well. I will send someone to inform you about the casino and the auction house. Help me keep an eye on them to avoid any mistakes. Don't worry. I will keep an eye on them, Ning Jing said seriously. After Han Yunxi left, she followed the plan and said that Ning Jing was sick and had to rest in bed. She bribed a maidservant from Fifth Elder's side and found a doctor from outside. Finally, she managed to hide this matter. After she was done, she hurriedly asked the maidservant to push her into the prison cell. From afar, she could hear Tang Li shouting, Sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, are you calling my soul? Han Yunxi asked unhappily. Where's Ning Jing? Tang Li had waited for a long time. He thought that Han Yunxi would bring Ning Jing over. Han Yunxi did not intend to say it. However, after hesitating for a long time, she finally felt that Ning Jing's pregnancy and almost miscarriage was a serious matter. As her husband, Tang Li had the right and obligation to know. Anyway, Tang Li would know sooner or later. If she did not say it now, she would definitely be blamed by Tang Li in the future. Han Yunxi hooked her finger at Tang Li. Come here. I will tell you another secret. Unlike last time, this time Tang Li rushed over and obediently bent down to listen. However, when Han Yunxi told him the truth, he was no longer obedient. He rushed out of the prison without saying a word. Fortunately, Han Yunxi had the foresight to lock the door when she just came in. Not to mention that there were archers outside. Tang Li could not rush out. Even if he rushed out, what could he do? He and Ning Jing were now like her and Long Fei Yi. They could not make their relationship public. The D clan still did not know the relationship between the Tang sect and Long Fei Yi. However, the Pear Flower Storm Needles had completely broken the relationship between the D clan and the Tang sect. If the news of Ning Jing's pregnancy spread, the one who would suffer a big loss would be Ning Jing. Tang Li could only be controlled by the D clan. Tang Li kicked the prison door with all his strength. Recalling what Ning Jing had said in Medical City, he simply wanted to slap himself. How could he be so stupid and careless? At that time, he had put Ning Jing under house arrest. For 3 days and 3 nights, he had only given her water and 3 meals. He had even hung her hands up to torture her and threatened to hang her to the city gate. At that time, Ning Jing had smiled and said to him, "Ollie, I am pregnant." Ning Jing, you silly woman. Aren't you silly? Tang Li's heart was broken. Although he was scolding her, his tone was doting, as if Ning Jing was standing right in front of him. He finally understood why the stubborn Ning Jing had compromised at that time. It turned out that it was for the sake of the child in her womb. He should be so glad that Ning Jing had compromised. Otherwise, he would not have needed to hang her to the city gate. He only needed to starve her for 3 days and 3 nights, and she would not be able to hold on. His child would be gone. Bam! With a loud bang, Tang Li fiercely punched the prison door. After Tang Li vented his anger, Han Yunshi said indifferently, Tang Li, if you want to save your child's life, you better calm down. Otherwise, the mother and son will be in big trouble. Don't forget where you are. Actually, there was no need for Han Yunshi to say anything. Tang Li should be more aware of the consequences. He clenched his fist tightly and pressed it against the prison door. He calmed down and endured. After a while, Tang Li said, Sister-in-law, is there really no way to get me out of here? There's a way, but it is too risky at this juncture. Han Yunshi was in a difficult position. Unexpectedly, Tang Li was very decisive. Then help me take care of the mother and son. He was silent for a while, then continued, Sister-in-law, let me know when you want to deal with Bai Yanqing. No matter what, I want to bring Ning Jing back to the Tang sect. Han Yunshi suddenly felt that Tang Li had grown up. She agreed without hesitation. Okay, let your brother arrange it for you. Han Yunshi finally remembered Long Fei Yi. She had abandoned him before dawn and had been busy until now. The sky was almost dark. Long Fei Yi should be on his way to Western Zhou now. Tang Li's child would have to call Long Fei Yi uncle. Long Fei Yi was going to be an uncle? Han Yunshi suddenly felt very incredulous. She recalled that Long Fei Yi had asked her several times before. She couldn't help but feel bitter. Children, how could it be so easy to get them just because they wanted them? If they met on the battlefield one day, what would happen to the children? Han Yunshi shook her head, unwilling to think about it. She felt that she should hurry up and deal with the casino and the auction. If she could settle these two matters before Long Fei Yi returned and take over Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Council, they could settle the score with Bai Yanqing as soon as possible. Gu Beiyue's situation and the little thing's whereabouts were still unknown. She really missed them. Thus, after Han Yunshi left the prison cell, she covered her face with a veil and had a servant girl push her to the auction. Just as she left through the front door, Long Fei Yi happened to sneak in from behind. Long Fei Yi waited in the room for the whole night again. Han Yunshi only returned in the middle of the night. This time, he witnessed the entire process of Han Yunshi taking a bath. It was only when Han Yunshi cleaned up and wrapped in a silk nightgown that he suddenly walked out from behind the screen and asked casually, Tired? Want to sleep? Han Yunshi was really frightened and almost fell off the bed. She stared at him in disbelief, wondering if she was dreaming. Why didn't you come out earlier? Han Yunshi also asked the same question last night. However, the meaning behind his words today was completely different. Last night, he came out when she was in the middle of her bath. Today, he actually silently watched her finish her bath before coming out. Just now, how much did he see? Thinking of this, and looking at Long Fei Yi's scrutinizing eyes, Han Yunshi couldn't help but think of their first time. She had taken off her clothes, and he had seriously and overbearingly scrutinized her body, her everything. Sometimes, the way this man looked at her made her afraid. She felt like she would be eaten up at any time. I saw everything. Long Fei Yi was still as direct as last night. He immediately ridiculed her. Your movements are quite nimble. Han Yunshi finally understood the displeasure in his eyes. Although her legs were a lot better, and she could secretly take 2 or 3 steps, he absolutely forbade her from doing so. He wanted her to rest for a while before she could undergo rehabilitation training. Han Yunshi quickly changed the topic. Long Fei Yi, didn't you go to Western Zhou? Chapter 9:15. Long Fei Yi had no intention of going to Western Zhou at all. He had already thought of an excuse to meet Han Yunshi, but who knew that he would have to wait for her for an entire night? Not only did he have to wait, he even witnessed her dragging her legs to soak in the bath, not allowing her handmaidens to serve her. She even secretly took a few steps away. It was already good enough that he ignored Han Yunshi. If Han Yunshi angered him again, he would probably carry her away and put her under house arrest in East Origin Palace. He would let her recuperate until her legs were completely healed. Long Fei Yi ignored her, and Han Yunshi did not anger Long Fei Yi either. Instead, she began to act coquettishly. Long Fei Yi, you're lying, aren't you? You can't bear to part with me, right? Under Long Fei Yi's gloomy gaze, Han Yunshi held his arm. Her words caused Long Fei Ye's expression to change completely. He avoided her smiling gaze. Am I right? Han Yunshi leaned over and asked gently. Long Fei Ye coughed lightly and did not answer. Han Yunshi thought that she would have to deal with him for a while to calm him down. She did not expect it to be so simple. She really could not learn to speak coquettishly, so she asked gently, Long Fei Yi, let's make a bet. With Han Yunshi's gentle voice, Long Fei Ye's towering rage was instantly extinguished. Even if his heart was made of steel, it was instantly softened and melted by her words. He lowered his head to look at her. He was a little flustered and at a loss for what to do. He did not know how to respond. At this time, no matter what this woman asked of him, he would definitely agree to it. This was his Achilles heel. Han Yunshi did not ask for anything. She tugged at his arm and asked persistently, Long Fei Yi, do you want to bet? Okay. He immediately agreed. He did not even know what to bet. I bet you'll come to me again tomorrow. Han Yunshi couldn't help bursting into laughter. Long Fei finally recovered from her gentleness and realized in hindsight that this woman was mocking him. He could hide it from her last night, but he came again tonight. No matter how perfect the excuse was, Han Yunshi would not believe it. Even though he was mocked by this woman, he did not get angry. Instead, he could not help but laugh along with her. Long Fei Yi, what about you? What are you betting on? Han Yunshi asked again. She bet that he would come to find her the next day, so he had to bet that he wouldn't. If he wanted to win the bet, he would have to endure it tomorrow and not come. Han Yunshi was determined to eat him up and win against him. Well, you even tricked me. Long Fei Yi smiled helplessly, full of pampering. I didn't. You were the one who was willing to bet with me. I didn't force you, Han Yunshi retorted. Han Yunshi was afraid that he would be angry at first, but seeing his reaction, she became playful. It was really not easy for her. After being with him for so long and being bullied so many times, she finally found his weak spot. Long Fei Yi could not refute. How could there be such a woman who made people love and hate her? He hated her so much that his teeth itched. He loved her so much that he wanted to eat her up. Without saying a word, he pushed Han Yunshi, who was leaning against him, onto the couch. He quickly turned over and immediately pinned Han Yunshi under him. This action seemed to have been a long time. Han Yunshi quickly pushed her hands against his chest and distanced herself. Long Fei Yi, you can't go back on your word. You promised to bet. You win. Long Fei Yi laughed. Tell me, what do you want? This man looked even better when he laughed heartily than when he was pulling a long face. Han Yunshi had not seen him at such a close distance in a long time. Unconsciously, she looked at his face seriously. He had sharp eyebrows, starry eyes, and a sharp nose. He was really handsome. The closer she looked at him, the more she felt that he was unreal. Han Yunshi could not help but gently caress Long Fei Ye's face. Only then did she feel that the person in front of her was real. Only then did she feel that falling in love with him and being doted on by him was not a dream. Her joking heart calmed down subconsciously. She asked gently, Long Fei Yi, I won the bet. As punishment, you have to come and find me the day after tomorrow, okay? Long Fei Yi was stunned. Soon, the smile on his face widened. Han Yunshi gently caressed the corner of his lips, feeling his real presence. It was too beautiful. She kept feeling that this was a dream. Long Fei Yi did not reply. He looked down at her hand and allowed her to caress it. When her finger accidentally brushed past his lips, he sucked on it. Han Yunshi laughed, but Long Fei Yi had no time to laugh with her. He quietly kissed his way down her finger and lingered on her jade arm until he reached her shoulder. Fei, Han Yunshi called out softly. His voice was low to begin with, but after being tainted with QY, it deepened even further. His was like a magic spell that made Han Yunshi's heart and body restless. A pleasant voice could make a person's ears pregnant. This was probably referring to Long Fei Ye's type. He teased her from her shoulder all the way down until Han Yunshi couldn't hold back anymore. Her entire body began to tremble. By the time Long Fei Yi reached the peak, Han Yunshi finally couldn't take it anymore. She hugged him and begged for mercy. It was so contradictory. Faced with her contradictions, Long Fei Yi was absolutely domineering. He waved his hand to draw down the muslin canopy and did as she asked. He did his best to please her and satisfy her. In the darkness, uncontrollable screams and ambiguous gasps intertwined together. The two shadows reflected on the muslin canopy also intertwined. Sometimes they separated, sometimes they joined. The rhythm was enough to make one stop breathing. Han Yunxi felt like her soul was being pierced through. When the two of them finally calmed down, Long Fei Yi was still unwilling to move away. She hugged him, both amused and angry. What else do you want? 100 steps. You can't go any further, right? Long Fei Yi asked lazily. Only then did Han Yunxi realize that the distance between them was negative. She was so embarrassed that her flushed cheeks turned even redder. You pervert, she said coquettishly. Long Fei buried his head in her shoulder and chuckled soundlessly. Han Yunxi pushed him a few times, but he still didn't move. Actually, there were many times when she couldn't do anything to him, so she just let him hang around. Hugging each other wasn't just hugging each other. It was also having each other. Only when she hugged him tightly did she feel that the road ahead was long and not lonely. When she looked at his face so closely just now, it wasn't as close and real as it was now. The Bible said, I see that everything done under the sun is empty and chasing after the wind. Han Yunxi thought that there was only one definition of what was real, and that was to have it. Only when one had it would it be real. Han Yunxi was in a daze. Long Fei Yi eventually retreated. He casually grabbed the silk blanket and wrapped it around his body. Even if it was just a casual movement, it was still so beautiful and sexy. Only then did Han Yunxi see that the bite mark on his left hand had already become a scar. There were 2 scars, half crescent-shaped and dark brown. Although some bite marks left scars, they would gradually fade over time. However, the bite mark on Long Fei Yi's hand was so deep that it would stay there for the rest of his life unless he used some miracle medicine. Since the scar had been successfully left behind, what else could Han Yunxi say? She pulled Long Fei Yi's hand over and looked at it carefully. Long Fei Yi, if what? The birthmark was actually a bite mark from a lover in her past life. If it was later, she had always been curious. Long Fei Yi smiled, but didn't say anything. Han Yunxi pestered him. She found his Achilles heel and pleaded gently. Tell me. Who knew that Long Fei Yi still wouldn't tell her? He had already made up his mind not to tell her so early. Han Yunxi didn't give up. She simply acted coquettishly and begged coquettishly. Long Fei Yi, just tell me. Tell me. Tell me. As she begged, she even rubbed against his chest. Long Fei Yi's immunity was completely gone. No matter how strong his heart was, it couldn't withstand her coquettish voice. He had always hated this kind of voice, but he couldn't resist her. If she continued to pester him like this, she might not be able to get out of bed even when the sun rose. Okay, I'll tell you. As soon as Long Fei Yi surrendered, Han Yunxi immediately stopped pestering him. Long Fei Yi immediately regretted it. Actually, it was okay to be pestered by her for a while longer. Tell me. She became serious. A birthmark is actually a bite mark from a lover in a previous life. If the bite mark doesn't disappear until death in this life, it will definitely become a birthmark in the next life. Long Fei Yi paused for a moment and laughed. Han Yunxi, if you see this bite mark in the next life, you have to recognize me. It was a beautiful legend, but why did Han Yunxi feel like crying when she heard it? She was silent for a moment. Suddenly, she stretched out her hand. Long Fei Yi, bite it. Bite it hard. She clearly didn't believe in such a ridiculous legend, but for some reason, she wanted to leave a mark that belonged to him. Long Fei Yi rejected her. Don't worry. If there really is a next life, I'll recognize you even if you don't have a birthmark. So, did he believe it or not? Han Yunxi knitted her brows as she looked at him. She felt like she should say something, but didn't know what to say. She stared and stared at Long Fei until she suddenly hugged him tightly. What next life? If they could grow old together in this life, be it ruling the world or making money, then it would be eternal. Han Yunxi didn't like the topic of next life. She said, Long Fei Yi, let me tell you some good news. Good news? Long Fei Yi was very surprised. Ning Jing is pregnant. She's been pregnant for more than 4 months, Han Yunshi said softly. Long Fei Yi smiled. Tang Li, this rascal. You're going to be an uncle. Han Yunshi said again. Although Long Fei Yi was happy for Tang Li, he wasn't as happy as Han Yunshi. He looked at Han Yunshi's stomach expressionlessly. He didn't say a word, and Han Yunshi knew what he was thinking. Long Fei Yi knew she knew what he meant, so he waited for her to speak. After a while, Han Yunshi said, It's almost dawn. In other words, he had to leave. Long Fei gave a serious sigh. Looks like I haven't worked hard enough. A few years ago, they had attended a family banquet in the palace. At the time, the Empress Dowager had asked about Han Yunshi's stomach. Long Fei Yi had said he would work hard when he returned. Long Fei Yi got off the bed and quickly packed up to leave. Han Yunshi couldn't help but grab his hand. Fei, it's not time yet. I know, Long Fei Yi said mildly. He could stop Bailey Yuan Long, but he couldn't stop Han Yunshi herself. He had always known that she would take precautions after the event. Now really wasn't the time to have a child. He hadn't even fulfilled his promise to her. So how could he give her another responsibility? He really hadn't worked hard enough. Chapter 9:16. If now was not the time, when would it be? At the very least, it had to be like the pot of sunflowers she had moved outside the tent. They had to see the light and be magnanimous. Unlike now, when he had to leave at daybreak. If you need money, go to Kingan Bank and tell them your name. Long Fei Yi left these words before leaving. Undoubtedly, he had given in again. In these 2 nights, he had the urge to find Han Yunshi several times and take her away to carry out his plan to lure by Yanqing out. But in the end, he restrained himself. Han Yunshi stared blankly as Long Fei Yi's lonely figure disappeared outside the window. Her heart ached faintly. Of course, she knew that Long Fei Yi had given in again. If Myriad Merchant Hall wanted to survive this crisis, it was all about money. As long as they could hold on, they could afford to play, right? She had Long Fei Yi's limitless gold card, but she could not use it openly in Myriad Merchant Hall. If it was a bank, she could borrow it in the name of the Chamber of Commerce. Borrowing money was not an easy task. Besides, if the Chamber of Commerce wanted to borrow money, it would be a large sum. It was even more difficult. Since Long Fei Yi had opened his mouth, it would be easy no matter how much she borrowed. Long Fei Yi had given in for her, but it had also benefited the D clan for nothing. Long Fei Yi, even if we meet on the battlefield, I will definitely live on and bear you a bunch of children. Han Yunshi murmured with tears in her eyes and a smile. Even if Long Fei Yi had given in, she did not want Long Fei Yi to suffer losses. She had a way. In the next few days, Han Yunshi was really busy. Long Fei Yi would come over at night to help her change her bandages and hug her to sleep. The 2 of them did not bring up the topic of children again. Long Fei Yi clearly knew that there would be no result no matter how hard he tried, but he worked even harder than before. He even tormented her several times in one night, leaving countless marks on her body. Han Yunshi always felt that he was punishing her. However, she accepted it and gladly endured it. She worked even harder to think of a way to settle the matter with Myriad Merchant Hall. It took Uncle Chung 3 days to find 2 locations in the 2 busiest cities near the 3-way battlefield. One was located on the border between Tianning and Western Zhou and was called the West Jade Garden. The other was located within Tianning, south of the 3-way black market, and was called the South Jew Garden. Both gardens occupied a large area. There were enough halls to be converted into gambling halls and enough side rooms to be converted into guest rooms. As soon as Uncle Chung returned, he gave Han Yunshi the blueprints for the 2 gardens. Han Yunshi studied them carefully and liked them very much. She also silently admired Uncle Cheng's ability to find locations. These 2 gardens used to be summer residences for the Ning Imperial clan. A few years ago, Emperor Tianhui lacked funds for his troops during the Civil War, so he sold off many of the Imperial gardens, including the South Jew and West Jade gardens. They were sold off at a cheap price. After the buyer bought them, they left them empty. After all, The border regions are filled with war, so it's not a good place to live, Uncle Chung explained. Before Cloud Realm Trade Consortium lost its business with the South Central regions, they rarely bought empty gardens or residences, no matter how rich they were. Most of their wealth was invested in business. Gardens and residences didn't make money, but they were extremely costly. It was not a small expense for a garden to be equipped with servants and housekeepers. Moreover, every brick, tile, flower, tree, and grass in the garden needed to be maintained regularly. The Declan's Ning family was definitely a family of merchants. They haggled over every penny and wouldn't waste a single copper coin unless it was absolutely necessary. Since they're empty, the price shouldn't be too high, right? Han Yunqi asked. Uncle Chung sighed and raised a palm. Now everyone was stunned, including Han Yunqi. One palm was worth 5. The price was 50 million? 500 million yuan? After all, these two gardens weren't just any ordinary gardens. In terms of land area, one of them was worth more than 10 large residences combined. Of course, it couldn't be 50 million. But if it wasn't 50 million, could it be 500 million? That was too high, wasn't it? Just how much is it? The head elder grew anxious. The two residences belong to the same person. His surname is Chun, and his origins are unknown. If we sell them together, it'll be 500 million, Uncle Chung replied. Is this daylight robbery? The head elder cursed. What's going on? Could it be that he knows we're buying them to open a gambling house? Old Chung, did you leak something? The second elder questioned. I'm innocent. I didn't leak anything. I just said that master likes it and wants to buy it for a short stay. Uncle Chung looked aggrieved. In reality, the garden owner had only offered a price of 200 million. Uncle Chung had promised to give the garden owner an additional 50 million as a rebate, so that the garden owner could fake the price with him and raise the price. Then what's going on? Han Yunqi asked. The garden owner said that if we don't hurry up and order it, we might not be able to buy it in 2 days, Uncle Chung said helplessly. There are others who want to buy it? Who are they? Han Yunqi quickly asked. Uncle Chung shook his head. The garden owner refused to say. I'm wondering if it's someone from East Origin Hall. If the garden owner can offer 500 million, it means that the other buyers are not cheap. Aside from East Origin Hall, who else in this war-torn land could be so wealthy to throw away such a large sum of money? Han Yunqi wasn't the only one who could think of opening another gambling house. If East Origin Hall beat them to it, then it would be difficult for them. The elders looked at each other and became anxious. Actually, Myriad Merchant Hall could afford the price of 500 million. Even if they couldn't, they could use the limitless gold card to pay first. However, once they bought it, what if Han Yunqi's plan to reopen the gambling house failed? Then this expenditure would go down the drain. No matter how perfect a business model was, there were still risks. 500 million was not a small sum. At this critical juncture, Myriad Merchant Hall couldn't afford to gamble. The silver used on the limitless gold card had to be returned within a month. Uncle Chung saw the difficult expressions on the elders' faces and was secretly delighted. He had led the suspicion to East Origin Hall, which was foolproof. First, it would arouse the elders' fighting spirit. Second, no one would be able to investigate the truth. It's good, but it's a little too big. We don't need such a big one. Old Chung, is there anything else? Grand Elder asked tactfully. That's it. There are only these 2 places. If someone else gets there first, they won't be able to get there. If they snatch them, it'll be difficult for us. Uncle Chung said. Actually, it was possible to open a gambling house elsewhere, but it wouldn't be as convenient as near the three-way black market. Those who came to the three-way black market to do business were mostly gamblers. Seeing that no one spoke, Uncle Chung helplessly reminded, Princess, we can choose another place. However, if East Origin Hall takes over such a good place and we reopen the gambling house, they'll copy our gambling house model. Then we really won't be able to survive. Hearing this, the elders became anxious. No matter how good a business model was, it still required the right time, place, and people. Location was very important when doing business. A complicated look flashed across Han Yunqi's eyes. When she looked at Uncle Chung, her gaze deepened. Long Fei, you want to buy a garden? Why didn't he tell her? If he wanted to buy a garden, then so be it. Why did he have to ask for such a high price? Was Uncle Chung lying? Or did Long Fei you want to give her a surprise? As for the truth, she'd better ask him tonight. Han Yunshi accepted the 2 blueprints and said calmly, I'll think about it for a night and give you an answer tomorrow morning. Elders, please consider it carefully. Uncle Chung sneered inwardly. These 2 gardens were enough to make things difficult for Han Yunshi. He didn't need to think about the auction house anymore. After discussing the gambling house, Han Yunshi asked about the auction house. That troublemaking buyer had already been locked up in Myriad Merchant Hall's dungeon for 2 days. Grand Elder had arranged everything properly. Now, the 2 sides of public opinion in the 3-way black market were evenly matched. Some said that the buyer had been silenced by Myriad Merchant Hall. Myriad Merchant Hall refused to admit to selling fake goods and even killed the buyer. Others said that the buyer had been kidnapped by Golden Wing Palace. Golden Wing Palace not only hit Myriad Merchant Hall when they were down in the gambling house, they also wanted to frame Myriad Merchant Hall for the auction house. Everything was progressing smoothly, but the buyer still refused to confess. Princess, could it be that we made a mistake? Grand Elder asked seriously. He had used capital punishment, but the buyer insisted that he was innocent. There's no need to interrogate him. Rest well, Han Yunchi said calmly. Princess, the auction house hasn't had any business for 6 days. Yesterday, old Liu brought out the 10 treasures. There were many onlookers, but no one bid, Second Elder said helplessly. No matter what public opinion was, it would pass eventually. The key was whether the auction house still had business. Everyone knows about Kingan Bank, right? Han Yunchi said calmly. As soon as this name was announced, everyone's eyes lit up. Kangon Private Bank was Cloud Realm Continent's #1 private bank, famous for its mysterious background. Out of the 10 Limitless Gold cards, 5 of them came from this bank. The Limitless Gold card that Deacon Jean had given to Mu Ling came from Kangon Bank. Apparently, people from the bank had already sought out Deacon Jean over the past few days. Princess, why did you mention Kangon Bank? Grand Elder asked nervously. I'm planning to use the auction house business to cooperate with Kingan Bank. Manager Luo has agreed, but I don't know what you all think. Everyone grew even more stunned at her words. Not to mention the method of cooperation, since shopkeeper Luo had agreed, it meant that the cooperation was profitable. In other words, the auction house's business could be saved. Manager Luo was a famous figure in the circle for being in charge of such a large bank. Any business he approved of would definitely succeed. In his excitement, Grand Elder blurted out, Princess, you can make all the decisions. This is Myriad Merchant Hall's business. After all, it's more appropriate for the elders to make the decisions. Han Yunshi feigned modesty. Your Highness Princess is too modest. We have pledged our loyalty to Western Qin, so naturally we'll listen to the princess's arrangements. Grand Elder immediately followed up. The Council of Elders will listen to your Highness Princess's arrangements. Han Yunshi didn't need their verbal obedience. She wanted Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Command Medallion. Without Ning Chung here, Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Command Medallion was superior to all of the D-Clan's Council of Elders. As long as Grand Elder was willing to hand over the item, she'd win. There were still 6 days left until her agreement with Long Fei Yi, so she had patience. Naturally, I won't let you down, Han Yunchi said seriously. She then told them the details of her cooperation with Kingan Private Bank. Once again, the elders and Uncle Chung were shaken by Han Yunshi's words. A deep shock. Han Yunshi's method of cooperation not only saved Long Fei Yi, but also saved the auction house. What was it? Chapter 9:17. Han Yunshi and Kangon Bank had reached an agreement. Any guest who participated in Myriad Merchant Hall's auction could borrow money from Kangon Bank to pay the auction house once they won the bid. Furthermore, the interest rate would be 10 points lower than the normal interest rate. Many people bid for rare items at high prices, not because they had any use for them, nor because they liked to keep them. Instead, they wanted to resell them. Once they won the bid, they could sell it within a month. They could also hoard it and sell a year later. People in this kind of business wouldn't just bid for one item. Many people would bid for several items in a single night. A large portion of them had the problem of lacking funds. They would often calculate the interest rate and borrow money to bid for the items. Even if they borrowed money to bid, they could still resell the item in the end. They could still make a profit. Han Yunqi's suggestion of a partnership was simply to serve these people. As long as they participated in Myriad Merchant Hall's auction house, they could get a loan from Kangon Bank that was 10 points lower than the normal interest rate. How could they not be tempted? It was equivalent to earning 10 points more than at other auction houses. What did 10 points mean? If an item was worth 10 million, then 10 points would be 1 million. Han Yunqi didn't need to explain further. Everyone present knew how tempting this offer was. With Kangon Private Bank's strong support, as long as Myriad Merchant Hall came up with some policies and promised to compensate for the fakes, many buyers would come uninvited. Once they came, they would slowly boost the auction hall's business. As long as the auction house was strictly controlled within a month or two and there were no more fake goods, business would definitely be better than before. They might even steal business away from Golden Wing Hall and East Origin Hall. Princess, why is Kangon Bank giving us such a huge discount? Uncle Chung asked. This was what everyone wanted to know. What kind of relationship did Han Yunqi have with Kangon Bank? How could she get such a huge advantage? Unexpectedly, Han Yunqi said, We didn't. We have a secret agreement. Kangon Bank will give the buyer 10% of the profit, and Myriad Merchant Hall will compensate Kangon Bank with 13%. Kangon Bank actually earns 3% more than the normal interest. The moment she said this, Uncle Chung panicked. Princess, in the end, we'll be the ones at a disadvantage. We lost 13 points for nothing. That's a bargain for the buyers. How can there be such a good thing? Han Yunqi sneered. All right then. Go make an announcement right now. Say that Myriad Merchant Hall's auction house will offer a 13% discount on everything sold. See who's willing to come. Let's see who will believe you. Uncle Chung was speechless. The elders looked at each other, speechless. Why should Kangon Bank earn more? They had credibility, and buyers were willing to trust them. Uncle Chung, the fact that Kangon Bank is willing to cooperate with us means that they're giving us credit for free. Is Kangon Bank's reputation only worth 3%? Han Yunqi questioned. Uncle Chung didn't say anything, so she continued, We lost 13 points, but that's not a loss. At most, we earn less. Which item sold at the auction house didn't earn several times the original price. Besides, the buyers might not necessarily repay the full amount of the loan, so we might not earn so much from every sale. Uncle Chung didn't answer, so Han Yunqi looked at him coldly. Uncle Chung, do you know how to calculate? Uncle Cheng's head hung even lower. He didn't dare to retort, secretly hating himself for being too impulsive just now. All of the elders looked at Han Yunqi, thoroughly convinced of her abilities. They were all old, and this was the first time in their lives that they had seen such a capable woman who could manipulate business to such an extent. Han Yunqi was right. Although they had gone in a roundabout way, the auction house didn't lose any money, but only lost 13 points. Based on the current situation, even if they lost some money temporarily, they had to recover the business. What's more, they only lost 13 points. This woman was simply too smart. No wonder Manager Luo of Kangon Bank was willing to cooperate with her. First Elder secretly thought that if this matter was really successful, he would give the Elder's token to the princess. He believed that this woman had enough ability to lead Myriad Merchant Hall to regain the dominant position in three-way black market. Princess is wise. The Elders Guild will definitely support you fully. The Great Elder said seriously. The other 4 elders also took a step forward and bowed respectfully to show their loyalty. No matter how unwilling Uncle Chung was, he had to bow as well. Uncle Chung couldn't help but sigh again. How great would it be if this woman wasn't still together with Long Fei? If this woman could be together with Master Ning, he would do his best even if he had to sacrifice his old life. Thinking of Master Ning, Uncle Cheng's eyes unconsciously turned red. He had already sent more people to search for him and even went to Northernly. Unfortunately, There was no news so far. Han Yunshi discussed some details with the elders. When the meeting ended, it was already dark. She knew that Long Fei Yi would come, so she hurried to Ning Jing's side. When Ning Jing found out that Long Fei Yi was behind Kangon Bank, she was so shocked that she almost had a miscarriage. At this time, even the competitive Ning Jing had to admit that the D clan was no match for Long Fei Yi. She couldn't help but wonder how Ning Cheng would feel if he knew about this. Han Yunshi hadn't mentioned Tang Li for a few days, but Ning Jing took the initiative to ask, how does the elders plan to deal with Tang Li? A trace of heartache flashed across Han Yunshi's eyes. She smiled and said, "You're so concerned about him." Ning Jing rolled her eyes at her and didn't say anything else. Han Yunshi didn't joke with her anymore. She said, "They're already busy enough with the casino and the auction. How can they care about Tang Li?" Ning Jing was silent for a while before speaking again. "Han Yunshi, First Elder will definitely give you the Elder's token. As long as you control Myriad Merchant Hall, the Chamber of Commerce and the Army will have to listen to you. You'll be able to see Long Fei Yi very soon." Han Yunshi was helpless. She saw Long Fei Yi every day. Not only did she see him every day, but she was also tortured by him every day. She knew what Ning Jing meant. As long as she controlled Myriad Merchant Hall, she could openly cooperate with Long Fei Yi and fight against Bai Yanqing in the name of Eastern and Western Qin. "Han Yunshi, I have a favor to ask of you," Ning Jing said. "I promise you." Han Yunshi answered without hesitation. Ning Jing was helpless. "You know what I'm going to say? You wanted to let Tang Li go, right?" Han Yunshi smiled again. Ning Jing didn't hide it anymore. She openly admitted, "Han Yunshi, before you leave Myriad Merchant Hall, please let Tang Li go." "Silly, if I don't let him go, how can he take you away?" Han Yunshi said this in her heart. "Then what about you?" Han Yunshi asked. "If there really is a misunderstanding between Eastern and Western Qin, then Ning Jing hesitated for a while, then said, "Then please tell him that the child and I are waiting for him at Myriad Merchant Hall." Han Yunshi endured it again and again. She was afraid that Ning Jing's pregnancy would be affected. Tang Li had also told her not to say anything and let her rest first. If we're not destined to be together, then don't worry about me, and don't look for me," Ning Jing said. Han Yunshi only nodded and didn't say anything else. Han Yunshi left Ning Jing's courtyard and went back. However, Long Fei Yi was still at East Origin Hall, for no other reason than that shopkeeper Luo had come to see him. If East Origin Hall was East Qin's treasury, then Kangon Private Bank was Long Fei Yi's personal property. The group of people from Kangon Private Bank didn't have any national enmity. They pointed out Long Fei Yi and money. "Master, you have to hold on to such a smart and capable woman," shopkeeper Luo said teasingly. Although Han Yunshi didn't say much, a smile appeared on her lips. Han Yunshi was indeed his woman. She didn't let him suffer at all. Actually, Han Yunshi didn't need to say her name. Shopkeeper Luo would have agreed to her request. A private bank's profits came from the transactions of deposits and loans. Those who opened a private bank played with risk and reputation. Han Yunshi gave them 3% of profit for free. Of course, they were happy to cooperate. Moreover, Han Yunshi's method of cooperation was simply too clever. He was sincerely convinced. "How's the matter with Deacon Jean coming along?" Long Fei Yi asked. "I sent someone to rush him today, and he's pretty much been forced into a dead end." "Master, please wait and see," shopkeeper Luo replied. Long Fei Yi already had his eyes on Deacon Jean. This fellow was very good at dealing with private banks, and he was a member of the Winter Crow clan. He was proficient in the Winter Crow language, so he would have other uses for him. It was a pity that this fellow was too arrogant. If he didn't first pressure him and then buy him over, it would be very hard to make him yield. After shopkeeper Luo left, Long Fei Yi asked the Shadow Guard, "Has everything been arranged for the 100 Poisons sect?" "Everything has been arranged," the Shadow Guard honestly replied and handed over several secret letters. Long Fei Yi wanted to lure out Bai Yanqing, so he had to make a move on the 100 Poisons sect. This was the only method left. Long Fei Yi had just opened the second letter when a shadow guard came forward to remind him, "Your Highness, it's getting late." In other words, Han Yunshi was waiting for him. How could the shadow guard be so busy? This must have been instructed by Su Donglin. Long Fei carried a pile of secret missives with him as he climbed over the walls of the courtyard. Only after he left would Bailey Mingxiang, who had been sitting in the garden waiting for him, return to her room. These days, she had been sitting in the garden in a daze when she wasn't cultivating. She missed esteemed Wang Fei, Miss Xiao Yuer, Mr. Father, and Miss Xiao Mama. When Long Fei entered the room, Han Yunshi was already lazily lying on the couch. "Waiting for me?" Long Fei asked with great interest. Unexpectedly, Han Yunshi readily admitted, "I've been waiting for you all night." "Then come earlier tomorrow night." Long Fei said this on purpose, knowing that she had something to say. "Long Fei, do you want to buy South Ju Garden and West J Garden?" Han Yunshi asked bluntly. Long Fei took Han Yunshi's rhetorical question as a question. "Do you like them?" he asked. "No." Han Yunshi hastened to explain. "I'm asking if you have plans to buy those two gardens. Have you sent someone to talk about the price?" Long Fei smiled. "They're already under my name. Why would I want to buy them?" Han Yunshi slowly raised her head, her expression incredulous. "Just how many gardens do you have?" Long Fei smiled but didn't speak. "You've taken a fancy to those two gardens?" A war-torn land was not a good place, nor was it a good place to hide. When Tianhui sold them at a low price, I bought them with the intention of reselling them. "How much did you buy them for?" Han Yunshi asked anxiously. 30 million for one, 60 million for two, Long Fei replied honestly. "Then what about selling them? How much are you planning to sell them for?" Han Yunshi asked again. "I've left them to my subordinates to manage." "I'm not sure either," Long Fei said mildly. He was just playing around with small businesses like this. He didn't care much about them. Han Yunshi narrowed her eyes. "Long Fei, someone's offering 500 million. Are you selling them?" Note to the reader. My previous address was wrong. Tang Li's children should call Long Fei uncle, not uncle. Chapter 918. 500 million? Long Fei grew suspicious. Han Yunshi wouldn't be so bored as to play such a joke on him. If Myriad Merchant Hall wanted to buy it, they wouldn't have offered such a high price. "What's going on?" Long Fei asked. Seeing Long Fei's attitude, Han Yunshi was 100% certain that Uncle Chung was up to something. If Long Fei's subordinate really offered 500 million, then such a large transaction would definitely be reported to Long Fei. Long Fei knew nothing about this matter, so there was only one possibility, and that was that Uncle Chung had misstated the price. Why would Uncle Chung misstate the price? Was it to line his own pockets and earn money from Myriad Merchant Hall? Or was it to make things difficult for her? Or perhaps it was both. What Uncle Chung? If Ning Chung hadn't gone missing, his guts would have grown. "Are you selling it for 500 million? Han Yunshi smiled even more meaningfully. 600 million. "Are you buying it?" Long Fei asked in return. Although he didn't know the whole story, he was certain that Myriad Merchant Hall had to be the one paying for it. 600 million. That's 300 million per garden. Han Yunshi began to calculate seriously. 600 million is a little expensive. 700 million. If you want it, then hurry up and order it. Otherwise, I won't sell it, even if it's 1 billion. Long Fei also said seriously. What was this? 100 million taels in the time it took to say one sentence? If the 5 great elders knew about this, would they all vomit blood and die? What would Uncle Chung think if he knew? No matter how profitable the casino was, it wasn't as efficient as Long Fei's money-making. Bye. 700 million it is. No more increases. Han Yunshi couldn't help but laugh after saying that. This couldn't be considered as her helping Long Fei fight against Myriad Merchant Hall. It could only be said that Ning Chung wasn't strict enough with his subordinates and had been tricked by them. A house worth 30 million was sold for 300 million. Long Fei had made a huge profit. It was enough for many merchants to earn money for 1 or 2 years. "What's going on?" Long Fei warned. If you don't tell me, then prepare another 100 million. 800 million? Han Yunqi's mouth twitched. The price was ridiculously high. The elders would definitely oppose the purchase of these 2 gardens. This matter would be ruined. She immediately told Long Fei Yi what Uncle Chang had told her that day. Long Fei Yi immediately understood what was going on. He didn't comment much, but a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He only said, "The person in charge of the 2 gardens is called Jia Dai. Tomorrow, I'll send someone over to inform him. You can handle the rest yourself." With that, he took out the secret letter. Leaning against the bed, he opened the letter one by one. Han Yunxi propped her hands on the bed and dragged her legs to sit up. She looked at Long Fei Yi with a smile, but didn't say anything. Long Fei Yi didn't need to raise his head to know that she was looking at him. He ignored her and finished reading the secret letter in his hand. Then he asked, "What are you laughing at?" Han Yunxi's smile deepened. Long Fei Yi caressed her small face. "What are you up to now? I'll give you all 700 million. Remember, Myriad Merchant Hall is not allowed to owe you a single cent." "I don't want your money." Han Yunxi rejected him immediately. Long Fei Yi finally looked up at her. "If you're not robbing me, then are you robbing me for my body?" Han Yunxi immediately shook her head. Before she could speak, Long Fei Yi approached her. "Then what are you laughing at?" Han Yunxi wrapped her arms around his neck and said seriously, "I just feel that it's really good to have you." Long Fei Yi slowly lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. He said gently, "I'm only good to you." With that, he lowered his head and kissed her gently on the lips. Then, he took her hand away and focused on reading the secret letter. Han Yunxi's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this. Once she wrapped her arms around his neck, he definitely wouldn't let her go. Especially these past few nights, as long as he was on this bed, he definitely wouldn't let her be idle. He would torment her until she was powerless and fainted. But what was wrong with him tonight? Han Yunxi was filled with suspicion. Hugging a pillow, she sat at the side and watched as Long Fei Yi focused on the secret letter without any distractions. The more Han Yunxi looked at him, the more she felt that something was wrong. Was this still Her Highness? Was he still that hungry wolf that she had been feeding for more than 2 months and couldn't get enough of? Han Yunxi thought that these secret letters should be very important, so she waited obediently at the side. After Long Fei Yi finished reading all the secret letters, he lay down on his side and said to her, "Why aren't you coming over?" Han Yunxi laughed inwardly. She really misunderstood him. She obediently snuggled into his embrace. She could already guess what he would do next. However, Han Yunxi waited for a long time. Long Fei Yi didn't provoke her like he did in the past. Instead, he just hugged her and quietly closed his eyes to sleep. Han Yunxi's eyes widened. Her gaze was complicated. If she still couldn't sense that Long Fei Yi was acting strangely, then she had accompanied him for so many years in vain. After a long period of silence, she gently took his hand, and Long Fei took it in his own. "You're not asleep yet?" Han Yunxi asked in a low voice. "Sleep." Long Fei Yi pulled her hand and wrapped it around her waist, hugging her a little tighter. How could Han Yunxi sleep? After a moment of silence, her small hand carefully broke free from Long Fei Yi's large hand. However, the moment she broke free, Long Fei Yi pulled her again and said in a low voice, "Be good. Sleep." Han Yunxi quieted down again. However, not long after, her hand moved again. This time, Long Fei Yi didn't stop her. Instead, he let her do as she pleased. Han Yunxi didn't do much either. She just gently stroked his fingers, caressing his slender fingers one by one. It was as if she was bored to death from insomnia, or as if she was secretly plotting something. Long Fei Yi was behind her, but his eyes were open the whole time. He was originally going to sleep, but the moment she moved, he was even more awake than she was. Han Yunxi played with Long Fei Yi's fingers. Seeing that Long Fei Yi didn't move, she pulled his hand to her lips and kissed it gently. Long Fei Yi's lips curled up slightly. He laughed silently and helplessly. Long Fei Yi. Finally, Han Yunxi spoke in a low voice. Long Fei Yi didn't move. He didn't answer. He smiled dotingly and helplessly. Only then did he realize that this woman was like him, desiring the other party. Long Fei Yi. Han Yunqi called out softly again. He couldn't bear to leave her hanging for too long. He pulled her hand down and hid it under the silk blanket. He held it down and said in a low voice, "All right, be good and sleep." Han Yunqi finally realized that there was something wrong with Long Fei Yi tonight. Something was very wrong. She turned around and looked at him with a frown. Although she didn't ask, they had a tacit understanding. Long Fei Yi avoided her gaze and pulled her head into his embrace. Be good, be good. Go to sleep. I'll hug you to sleep." Han Yunqi wanted to move again, but Long Fei Yi finally restrained her. He said in a low voice, "Your body is more important. Be good." Han Yunqi suddenly realized what he meant, so he was concerned about her contraception. A tinge of bitterness surged in her heart. How could mere good describe how good this man was? Long Fei Yi, you're so good that I really have no way of repaying you. Han Yunqi sat up as she spoke. Long Fei Yi sat up as well and was about to coax her when Han Yunqi wrapped her arms around his neck again. Long Fei Yi was about to move her hands away, but he couldn't bear to harden his heart. He lowered his head and murmured, "Yunqi, be good. It's time to sleep. I'm tired." She could hear the forbearance in his voice. Han Yunqi asked, "Long Fei Yi, if you have no way of repaying me, will you give me your body?" He knitted his brows and was about to push her away when Han Yunqi suddenly pressed his head down so that he was buried in her chest. "Stop fooling around." Long Fei Yi grew anxious. He remembered that Han Yunqi wouldn't let go. So he simply grabbed his hand and pressed it against her ample bosom. In this world, only this woman dared to force him like this. Only this woman had the ability to force him. Long Fei Yi finally couldn't hold himself back. He ruthlessly pushed her hand away from his head, but didn't leave. Instead, he viciously bit down. Although the bite wasn't deep, it left a shallow bite mark on her chest, which hurt a little. As soon as he let go, he growled, "Han Yunqi, you asked for it. I'm happy to." Han Yunqi threw caution to the wind. How could this man not want her? She gently stroked his chest. When she saw him furrow his brows, she became even more ruthless and pounced on him to kiss the sensitive spot on his chest. Han Yunqi. Long Fei Yi immediately raised his head and growled, "Han Yunqi, that's enough." "It's not enough," Han Yunqi said ruthlessly. She traced his refined and well-defined muscles all the way down. Long Fei Yi raised his head and closed his eyes. Only his long eyelashes trembled slightly. A thin layer of sweat seeped out from his temples. His expression seemed to be in pain, but he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. This was definitely torture. Fire burned through his entire body, as if his soul was bathed in fire. In the end, only Han Yunqi could put out the fire. That night, Han Yunqi truly experienced what it meant to play with fire and get burned. She slept and woke up all night. It wasn't until daybreak that a servant girl knocked on the door to remind her to eat, but Long Fei still didn't release her. "I'm not feeling well, so I'll get up later. Pass down the order that no one is to disturb me." Han Yunqi lay on the bed. Try her best to make her voice sound less hoarse. Long Fei Yi bullied her behind her back, ruthlessly punishing her for her provocation last night. When the servant left, Han Yunqi's tense nerves finally relaxed, letting him run wild. "Long Fei Yi, I'm so tired." When Han Yunqi was about to fall asleep, she faintly heard Long Fei Yi say, "Fool, there won't be a next time." She immediately woke up and glared at him. With a flushed face and large angry eyes, Long Fei Yi couldn't help laughing. However, he still seriously warned, "Take care of your body. You still owe this prince a dozen babies." Han Yunqi hooked her finger, indicating for him to come closer. When Long Fei Yi came closer, she told him the secret formula in a low voice. She was proficient in acupuncture, so she naturally had a way to prevent pregnancy without harming her body. When Long Fei Yi heard this, he forced out a smile. "That's good." She saw the disappointment and helplessness in his eyes. He gently stroked the bite mark on her chest, deep in thought. After a while, he rubbed her bangs and revealed a pampering smile. "Go to sleep. Chu Tianyin will come over tonight, so I'll be a bit late." Han Yunshi didn't make a sound, but her heart felt suffocated. Long Fei Yi was just like last night. Without saying anything, he turned and left. His back disappeared from the window, but Han Yunshi was still staring at him in a daze. After a while, Han Yunshi finally sat up. She wasn't like before, using acupuncture to prevent pregnancy as soon as she woke up. Instead, she tidied up her clothes and called a servant to send her to Ning Jing's side. What is she doing? Chapter 919. Han Yunshi didn't go to Ning Jing's place to look for Ning Jing. Instead, she went to look for Mu Ling Er. When she arrived, Mu Ling Er was brewing medicine for Ning Jing. Other than Chi brother, Mu Ling Er had never served anyone so attentively in her life. Ling Er, let me ask you something, Han Yunshi said in a low voice. What is it? Mu Ling Er asked curiously. Is there any medicine that can? Han Yunshi thought for a moment and said directly, Is there any medicine that can leave a scar? Who do you want to leave a scar on? Mu Ling was even more curious. Just tell me if there is, Han Yunshi asked anxiously. Yes, there is, but Han Yunshi didn't care about the but and immediately asked Mu Ling, make one for me. I want it right away. The bite mark on her chest from Long Fei Yi was only a mark, and there was no blood. This kind of bite mark would disappear in a day. She didn't have much time left. Mu Ling looked even more surprised. Sis, do you want to use it for yourself? Mu Ling had unknowingly gotten used to calling her sis. No, someone else needs it urgently. Hurry up, Han Yunshi urged anxiously. No matter if it's for you or someone else, you can't use it casually. There are many things to pay attention to, Mu Ling explained seriously. Han Yunshi calmed down. What are the things to pay attention to? Hurry up and tell me. The amount of medicine used depends on the severity of the injury. Moreover, there are subtle differences in the amount of medicine used in different parts of the injury. Also, different amounts of medicine will leave different scars. Mu Ling explained and asked seriously, Sis, who do you want to leave a scar on? A woman or a man? Are you interrogating a criminal? The skin around the wound was already fragile. If he used that kind of medicine, it would be very painful. It would be 100 times more painful than rubbing salt on the wound. If you're interrogating a criminal, I can do some tricks and add some chili oil into the medicine. Han Yunshi was expressionless as she said coldly, I want to use it myself. Mu Ling was shocked. Sister, what are you doing? Han Yunshi began to think about how to tell Mu Ling. She could let her understand the condition of the injury and accurately determine the appropriate dosage of medicine without telling her that the wound was a bite mark. But no matter how she thought about it, it didn't seem appropriate. In the end, she decided to throw caution to the wind. She asked Mu Ling to take her to a room at the side. She unbuttoned her coat and let Mu Ling see her wound. It had been almost a day since last night. The bite mark had faded quite a bit, but there was still a clear outline. Mu Ling was stunned. Her gaze only lingered on the bite mark for a moment before quickly moving to the surrounding area. She saw that Han Yunshi's neck and around her chest were all marks. Some were bruises, some were red, some were deep, some were shallow. Although she was inexperienced, Mu Ling could tell. These were definitely marks left after a frenzy, including the bite mark right in the middle of Han Yunshi's chest. Judging from the depth of the bite mark, it should have been left last night. So, Mu Ling finally raised her head and looked at Han Yunshi in disbelief. Sister, did you have an affair last night? Mu Ling felt that something was wrong after saying that, and immediately corrected herself. Long Fei Yi snuck in a Myriad Merchant Hall last night? Mu Ling thought to herself. Long Fei Yi was such a cold person, yet he could torment her sister to this extent. How on earth did he torment her? Mu Ling's ears couldn't help but heat up. Han Yunshi's face was already completely red, but she ignored her embarrassment and shyness and urged, Hurry and take a look. How should I use the medicine? Sister, Mu Ling stuttered for a long time before asking, Do you want to leave all these scars? Han Yunshi was stunned. Then her face turned even redder. Mu Ling'er still didn't understand that there was no need to leave these scars, because they were often there. With Long Fei's fetish, he'd do it every time. That's it. Hurry and help me think of a way. Han Yunshi tried very hard to ignore her embarrassment as she pointed at the bite mark on her chest and urged. Mu Ling'er had already noticed that Han Yunshi's face was completely red. She thought this sister is really going all out to leave scars. She doesn't even care about her face anymore. Sister, don't worry. I won't tell anyone. Mu Ling'er promised with a straight face. Han Yunshi glanced at her, and she happened to look at Han Yunshi. Their eyes met, and Mu Ling'er finally couldn't help but burst into laughter. She laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out. She really wanted to say, Han Yunshi, so there are times when you're this silly too. Han Yunshi pulled a long face. Are you going to give me the medicine or not? Mu Ling'er tried very hard to calm herself down. She asked with a smile, how deep do you want the scars to be? The deeper, the better. I want the kind of scars that will remain even after death, Han Yunshi said seriously. Mu Ling'er became serious. Sister, what are you trying to do? It'll hurt a lot. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up and make the medicine, Han Yunshi urged unhappily. Mu Ling'er was still hesitating when Han Yunshi's stern gaze made her wilt. She said, then you have to promise me something. If Long Fei asks, don't tell him that I helped you. Of course, Han Yunshi said. Mu Ling'er immediately went to grab some medicine to mix. She mashed a few ingredients and added some special medicine to mash them into a paste before finally presenting it to Han Yunshi. Sister, when you apply this, your skin will sizzle and burn. It'll be very painful. You should think about it. Mu Ling'er couldn't help but remind her. This kind of medicine shouldn't have any effect on the body, right? Han Yunshi asked seriously. It won't have any effect, but it'll hurt. You have to bear with it. Mu Ling'er was still worried and emphasized again. It's the kind that'll hurt a lot. Help me apply the medicine. Han Yunshi didn't hesitate. Mu Ling'er became timid and hesitated. I'll do it myself, Han Yunshi said. I'll help you. Mu Ling'er took a towel and let Han Yunshi bite it before she dared to apply the medicine. She had only applied it once when Han Yunshi bit the towel tightly and widened her eyes. Mu Ling'er didn't dare to move. The room was silent, and only the sizzling sound of Han Yunshi's chest could be heard. Mu Ling'er turned her head away and didn't dare to look. Just listening to the sizzling sound gave her goosebumps. She secretly glanced at Han Yunshi's face and saw that her brows were tightly knitted and her face was pale, but there was a hint of determination in her eyes. Soon, Han Yunshi grabbed Mu Ling'er's hand and motioned for her to continue. Mu Ling'er could only bite the bullet and continue. After the medicine was applied, the pain gradually subsided. Han Yunshi sat in the wheelchair and breathed heavily. Mu Ling'er looked at her quietly and was a little distracted. She thought that if Chi brother bit her, she would definitely be able to endure the pain. She suddenly wished that Chi brother would bite her, even on her face. After a while, the pain subsided and the wound became cold. Han Yunshi was overjoyed. Ling'er, it feels cold. Is it done? Let me take a look. Mu Ling'er was also nervous. She hurriedly helped Han Yunshi clear the dregs of the medicine. She saw that the bite mark on Han Yunshi's chest had darkened a lot. It was slightly dark brown and looked like a birthmark at first glance. Although it didn't look good, Mu Ling'er liked it very much and felt that it was very romantic. Han Yunshi looked at the mirror and gently touched the bite mark. She thought that this bite mark was definitely deeper than the one on Long Fei's hand. It might even be there in her next life. Mu Ling'er smiled slyly. Sis, Long Fei, you will be able to see it tonight, right? Han Yunshi pretended not to hear and said, bring me a pen and paper. I'll write a few prescriptions for you to take a look. Mu Ling'er was confused. What was this woman trying to do now? Han Yunshi wrote down 3 prescriptions. Mu Ling'er saw that these prescriptions were for treating her leg injury. You took these before, right? I don't think you need them now, Mu Ling'er said. Let me take a look. These, Han Yunshi hesitated for a long time before continuing. Can Ning Jing take these medicine? Ning Jing's leg is fine. Why would she take these medicine? Mu Ling'er didn't understand. Han Yunshi gritted her teeth and asked directly. I took these more than a month ago. If I sis. Mu Linger suddenly understood and exclaimed, You're pregnant. Shoo! Han Yunshi's glare could kill, but Mu Linger wasn't afraid. She lowered her voice and asked, You're really pregnant? I want to ask you. I took these medicine more than a month ago. If I were to get pregnant now, would it affect me? Han Yunshi asked seriously. Mu Linger finally understood what was going on. A complicated look flashed across her eyes. She hesitated for a while before looking at the prescription seriously. Finally, she gave an answer. It won't affect me. Look, be serious. Han Yunshi was very careful with her patients, but she was even more careful with herself. I'm sure Mu Linger wouldn't make a mistake in this kind of thing. Han Yunshi sighed softly and didn't say anything else. Mu Linger sat down in front of her and looked at her suspiciously. What are you looking at? Han Yunshi asked. Mu Linger didn't say anything. She took her hand to check her pulse. Han Yunshi avoided her. Not yet. Sis. Mu Linger was anxious. You want to get pregnant at this juncture? I still have something to do with the elders. I'll leave first. Han Yunshi avoided the topic and wanted to leave. Mu Linger didn't let her. Sis, let's talk about this. Han Yunshi still didn't want to talk about it. She pushed her away and wanted to leave. Sis, I'm from your family. Let's talk. Mu Linger pressed on her wheelchair. She had never sounded so serious before. Family? Han Yunshi's heart skipped a beat, but she compromised in the end. Sis, you still have a battle with Bai Yanqing. It's unknown how dangerous it will be. How are you going to settle the grudge between Eastern and Western Qin? Mu Linger said calmly. Sis, you've seen how Ning Jing is. She's already 4 months pregnant, but she's still hiding it. Don't tell me you want to be like her? Long Fei Yi and Tang Li are different, Han Yunshi retorted. You're different from Ning Jing too. Linger was agitated. In her heart, Han Yunshi was always rational and mature. Sis, Ning Jing said that when you leave three-way black market, she'll leave too. She can hide to raise and give birth. Can you do the same? Sis, Long Fei, you want to bring you back to Heaven Mountain now. Can you do it? Mu Linger asked again. If Han Yunshi could do it, she would have gone into hiding long ago after the misunderstanding between her and Long Fei Yi was resolved. There are no Western Qin princesses in this world. How desperate must the D clan be after persevering for so many years? Back then, didn't Long Fei Yi say something out of anger and ask her to stay by his side incognito? Han Yunshi was silent. She knew better than Mu Linger that it wasn't the right time. However, Long Fei Yi's lonely eyes kept appearing in her mind. Chapter 920. Han Yunshi had always been firm. The only thing that could shake her heart was Long Fei Yi's every word and action. She was the only one in the world who knew that a cold person like Long Fei Yi would look forward to having a child so much. He was high and mighty, and his wealth was comparable to a country's. He could get whatever he wanted. She really couldn't give him much. Seeing that Han Yunshi didn't say anything, Mu Linger scolded her. Your legs haven't even recovered. You've been so busy these days that you can't even take care of your meals. How can you still be pregnant? If you really want to have a child, you should get rid of that Bai guy as soon as possible. You should settle the grudge between East and Western Qin. You can have as many children as you want. Sis, even if you can hold on for 10 months, what about after the child is born? Mu Linger asked again. Perhaps after 10 months, East and Western Qin would be reconciled, and the world would be at peace. Long Fei Yi would be able to accompany her to enjoy the joy of a family reunion. Perhaps it wouldn't even take 10 months. Soon, East and Western Qin would be at war. Everything would be unpredictable. What about the child? Would they continue to hide and hide? Or would they become the target of public criticism? Or would they become something that both sides would fight over? Sis, you don't even know martial arts. You're always a burden to Long Fei Yi. Can you guarantee that if you have a child, you won't be a burden to Long Fei Yi? He's had a lot of guts on his shoulders. Mu Linger had said everything she could, but Han Yunshi remained silent. Mu Linger seemed impulsive and reckless, but her heart was more delicate than anyone else's. If it weren't for this delicate heart, she would probably have been tortured to death by Gu. Muling knew that Han Yunxi understood what she said. It would be difficult for her to convince Han Yunxi. She hesitated for a moment and said one last sentence. Sis, you and I are both motherless children. You should understand. These words were like a knife that gouged Han Yunxi's heart. Not only did she not have a mother, she didn't even have a father. Ever since he was young, he had longed for stability and companionship. She had suffered the hardships of being homeless, lonely, and helpless, so she hoped to give her child the best of everything. Responsibility didn't start from the moment she had children, but from the moment she decided to give them life. Han Yunxi still didn't say anything. She lowered her eyes, pushed the wheel, and slowly went out. Mu Linger didn't chase after her. She looked at Han Yunxi's receding figure, and her heart ached for no reason. Han Yunxi, what kind of decision did you make? After Han Yunxi left Ning Jing's courtyard, she immediately went to the Elders Guild. Although her face was full of fatigue, her eyes were clear and firm, sharp and spirited, as if all the troubles and contradictions had never existed. Fifth Elder, Kingon Private Bank will send someone over to sign the secret agreement later. When the time comes, you'll sign the agreement on behalf of Myriad Merchant Hall. Prepare well tonight and release the news early tomorrow morning. Remember to inform the auction house and prepare to write something, so that when the auction opens tomorrow, we can warm up the place. Han Yunxi instructed seriously. Princess plans to travel? Head Elder asked curiously. We can't delay the matter at the casino. Uncle Chung is right. If East Origin Hall gets ahead of us, we won't be able to do anything. Uncle Chung and I will make a trip. You should come with us. If we can agree on the price, we'll get it done today. Han Yunxi said. This price of 500 million is really... Head Elder still felt the pinch for the money. Uncle Chung, who had been silent all this time, immediately spoke up. Head Elder, if you continue to hesitate, we might as well not go. Let East Origin Hall buy it, and then you'll regret it. Head Elder glanced at him, but didn't say anything. Uncle Chung continued. If Master Ning was here, he wouldn't hesitate for so long. These words made everyone sigh with emotion. Ning Chung was famous for being decisive, and indeed wouldn't hesitate. If Ning Chung, the clan head, was here, the Council of Elders wouldn't have to take such a huge risk. If Master Ning isn't here, then it's fine as long as the princess is. It's the same for the princess to decide on this matter. When Fifth Elder said this, Head Elder was even more speechless. Han Yunxi didn't say much either. After agreeing on a time with Uncle Chung and Head Elder, she returned to her room to catch up on sleep. Uncle Chung had prepared everything. Seeing that it was still early, he planned to go to the auction house to take a look. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped out of Myriad Merchant Hall, someone wrapped an arm around his neck from behind. Who's there? Uncle Chung was about to retaliate, but the person behind him warned him coldly. Uncle Chung, why don't you try and hit me? I'll immediately tell Han Yunxi that you were looking for me. Jin Zi. Uncle Chung was shocked. He had been so busy with the casino that he had neglected this guy. He said in a low voice, Do you think Han Yunxi will believe you? Of course she won't believe me, but she will believe the 3 manservants in my hands. Deacon Jean lowered his head, his fine bangs covering his eyes. His eyes couldn't be seen, but the slight curve of his lips was cold and malicious. Han Yunxi has been looking for those 3 manservants for a long time. Uncle Chung was finally shocked. Those 3 manservants were the ones he had sent to smash up the casino. Didn't he give them money to leave 3-way black market? How'd they end up in Deacon Jin's hands? Jin Zi, let me go, and I'll give you your indenture agreement right now. Uncle Chung said seriously. Deacon Jin laughed loudly. Indenture agreement? What I need it for? Let me tell you, if Myriad Merchant Hall doesn't help me pay off my debt to Kingon Private Bank, I'm not done with you. Where was Uncle Chung going to take out more than 300 million to pay off his debt? Deacon Jean knew Uncle Chung very well, so he wanted Uncle Chung to persuade Han Yunxi and the Elders Guild to help him pay off his debt. However, Uncle Chung knew that Han Yunshi would never help Deacon Jean pay off his debt. Uncle Chung knew Deacon Jean too well. Deacon Jean looked calm, but he was actually an extremely vicious character. If this matter wasn't settled, he would never have a day of peace. Uncle Chung hesitated for a moment, then said in a low voice, "Give me 2 days. I'll go out for a while and come back to help you pay off your debt." Deacon Jean laughed coldly. "Uncle Chung, are you going out to get money? Han Yunshi and Head Elder are going to buy 2 gardens. I have a way to get some money. There's more than 250 million. Adding my savings, it's enough to pay off your debt." Uncle Chung said seriously. "Why should I believe you?" Deacon Jean asked in return. "You could choose not to believe me. If you go find Han Yunshi right now, I won't have a good time. You won't have a good time either." Uncle Chung said coldly. Deacon Jean hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he let Uncle Chung go. He wasn't afraid that Uncle Chung would run away, so he would trust him this time. He said, "All right, pay off your debt first. We'll talk about the indenture agreement later." Although Uncle Chung nodded, a cold glint flashed through his eyes. Once he got his hands on those 3 servants, how could he let Deacon Jean off? Was this brat tired of living to behave so atrociously in Myriad Merchant Hall's territory? Han Yunshi only caught up on an hour's sleep before decisively getting out of bed. She washed her face to wake herself up, then set off immediately. Uncle Chung and garden owner Jia Dai had arranged to meet at South Jew Garden, which was close to Three-Way Black Market. They arrived in less than 2 hours. Entering South Jew Garden side gate, they sat on a palanquin and were carried by servants for a long distance before arriving at a courtyard. There was a pavilion in the courtyard that was very imposing. Jia Dai was at the bottom of the pavilion, welcoming them. This Jia Dai was about 50 years old. He had a grizzled goatee and was dressed in a black robe. He was low-key and steady, giving off the impression that his background wasn't simple. "Old Master Jia, this is my master, Madam Han." Uncle Chung only introduced Han Yunshi, while First Elder disguised himself as a servant. Jia Dai smiled and bowed. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he invited them upstairs. When they entered the tea house, Jia Dai found an opportunity to replace his knees with 2 fingers and kneel in front of Han Yunshi. He then said, "Madam Han, please forgive our humble tea for not serving you well. Old Master Jia is too courteous." Han Yunshi replied politely to show that she knew what was going on. After a few cups of tea, Uncle Chung said, "Old Master Jia, my master agreed to the price you mentioned last time. I wonder if today..." Before Uncle Chung could finish, Jia Dai interrupted, That price. Sigh. To be honest, you're a step too late." "What's going on?" Han Yunshi pretended to be anxious, but First Elder was really anxious. "Someone came early this morning to put down a deposit. To be honest, the buyer is very generous. He offered 600 million taels in one go. He wants both gardens," Jia Dai said with a chuckle. 600 million? First Elder couldn't help but cry out. Uncle Chung kept winking at Jia Dai. Jia Dai finally looked at him and then stepped on his foot under the table. Uncle Chung immediately understood what was going on. This Jia Dai must be testing Han Yunshi to raise the price. Thinking of this, Uncle Chung knew what he should do. He asked, "Old Master Jia, you're not being kind. We agreed on 500 million taels." "Master Chung, last time I reminded you that there were already people who had their eyes on my 2 gardens. You didn't put down a deposit at that time, so you can't blame me for this," Jia Dai said confidently. First Elder glanced at Han Yunshi. He was clearly anxious. Only East Origin Hall could afford 600 million taels. Since East Origin Hall was so decisive, it meant that these 2 gardens were indeed valuable. If East Origin Hall really used them to open a casino, then it would be just as Uncle Chung said. Myriad Merchant Hall should never have any ideas about casinos in the future. "Jia Leoi, how much did the buyer put down as a deposit?" Han Yunshi asked. Jia Dai raised a finger. It was undoubtedly 100 million taels. For such a large transaction, it was impossible to only put down a 10 million taels deposit. 100 million taels. Han Yunshi was deep in thought. She whispered to First Elder, "What do you think?" The Great Elder was hesitant. Previously, He had only guessed that the East Origin Hall would come and buy it. Now that the East Origin Hall had really come to buy it, he had no choice but to reconsider the importance of these two territories. However, the price was too high, and it was beyond his expectations. First Elder didn't say anything for a long time. Uncle Chung hurriedly pulled him to the side to persuade him. Uncle Chung couldn't use Ning Chung to pressure First Elder. Uncle Cheng's original intention was only to make things difficult for Han Yunshi. In fact, as long as Han Yunshi couldn't find a site, it was fine if he didn't earn this extra income. But now that he was being threatened by Deacon Jean, he had to take this money to help pay off Deacon Jin's debt. Otherwise, his life would be over. Uncle Chung persuaded First Elder, and he actually managed to persuade him. Of course, First Elder still respected Han Yunshi's opinion. He said in a low voice, "Princess, you can make the decision." Han Yunshi glanced at Uncle Chung, her gaze distant. She said, "Old Master Jia, we'll offer 700 million taels. Think about it. You'll still earn more from the liquidated damages." Chapter 921. When Han Yunshi quoted the price of 700 million, Jia Dai's face was filled with shock, but his heart was calm. His Highness had long sent someone to tell him the amount. In contrast, the head elder looked calm on the surface, but his heart was in turmoil. While Myriad Merchant Hall could afford it, the risk was far too great. If Uncle Chung hadn't mentioned Ning Chung, he would never have agreed. Since Madame Han has offered such a sky-high price, she must like these two courtyards very much. Since that's the case, it's fine if the old man breaks his promise. Jia Dai pretended to sigh, even though he'd gotten a bargain. The head elder was angry in his heart, but he didn't show it. Instead, he said, "Since that's the case, I ask old Master Dai to show the deed to my family's madam for inspection." The head elder had to guard against this Jia Dai trying to sell two goods at once. Since they decided to buy the land, they had to get the deed in hand this time to avoid any more mishaps. Moreover, it was urgent to reopen the gambling house. They had to take advantage of the fact that the gamblers in the black market hadn't all left yet to lure them back. If they delayed any longer, they'd have to spend all sorts of resources to attract more gamblers. Jia Dai quickly went to retrieve the deed and showed it to Han Yunshi to make sure there were no mistakes. Jia Dai probed, "Madam Han, if there's no problem with this deed, can old Master Dai, 700 million is no small sum. I don't know if you can pay half of it first and pay the rest at a later date." The head elder made it sound so nice, but it could be summed up in two words. He wanted to put the debt on credit. Jia Dai's face immediately turned gloomy as he snatched the deed from Han Yunshi's hands. Cold, he said, "Everyone, Jia Dai, don't put things on credit." The head elder's face alternated between red and white, both embarrassed and angry. Whether it was Cloud Realm Trade Consortium or Myriad Merchant Hall, when had anyone ever dared to say such things? It was simply a disgrace. The head elder suddenly felt like a dog being bullied by a dog. Before he could speak, Uncle Chung said unhappily, "Old Master Jia, what do you mean by this? Are you afraid that we can't afford it?" As soon as Uncle Chung spoke, Han Yunshi, who was about to speak, stopped talking. She didn't expect Uncle Chung to be more anxious than her. Thinking about it, it made sense. Uncle Chung wanted to get a commission, so he naturally had to work hard to make the transaction pay in full. A cold glint flashed through Han Yunshi's eyes as she watched calmly. If it wasn't for the fact that you couldn't afford it, why would you only pay half up front? Jia Dai's tone was sarcastic. She deliberately looked at Han Yunshi and said, "I thought Mrs. Han was a generous person. I didn't expect. Hee, if you only intend to pay half of the bill, then I'm sorry. Everyone, please return." "Master Jia, I'm afraid you've misunderstood." The great elder couldn't help but say, "What I mean is that we pay half of the money first and settle this matter. Today and tomorrow, our madam will personally visit the two gardens. If there are no major problems, she will pay the remaining half of the money." The great elder's words gave himself and Han Yunshi a great platform to step down from. It also meant that he agreed to pay in full. Jia Dai's expression immediately returned to its original amiable and good-natured appearance. If that's the case, then it's easy to talk about it. There's no need to pay the deposit first. Old man will take you to visit the 2 gardens now. Han Yunshi whispered to the great elder. That's the only way. Send someone back to prepare the money. We'll walk around the gardens. When we go back, we can also discuss the remodeling. I just took a look along the way, and the garden shouldn't have changed much. The great elder's heart was filled with helplessness. He felt that this matter was happening too quickly, and it made him a little flustered. However, if they didn't act quickly and someone else beat them to it, then it would be very difficult for them to make a comeback. Princess, this subordinate, also took a serious look just now. Even the few courtyards we passed by don't need to be remodeled. As long as we transport the things from the casino over, we can use them directly. The great elder said in a low voice. That's good. This garden is big, so it's not impossible to use the courtyards in front first. We could discuss the remodeling slowly, Han Yunshi said in a low voice. That was what the great elder meant. He didn't want to miss this business opportunity the most. Just like that, Han Yunshi's group, accompanied by Jia Dai and a few servants, finished touring South Ju Garden at night. The actual layout of South Ju Garden was much better than what they had seen on the drawings. There were very few places that needed to be remodeled, and they were all small projects. The great elder had been hoping to find some major damage so that he could bargain with Jia Dai. Unfortunately, this garden was so well maintained that he had no chance at all. After dinner, Jia Dai warmly invited them to stay in South Ju Garden for the night, and they would set off for West Jade Garden tomorrow. It would take at least half a day to travel from South Ju Garden to West Jade Garden. Princess, stay here for the night. If we return to Myriad Merchant Hall, we'll have to walk for another 4 hours tomorrow, the great elder advised. Han Yunshi hesitated for a moment, then said, We're not going back to Myriad Merchant Hall, and we're not staying here. Uncle Chung, go tell Master Jia that we're in a hurry. We'll rush to West Jade Garden tonight. Tomorrow, we'll rest in West Jade Garden for a while, and then immediately visit the garden. Princess, your health is more important, the great elder advised with concern. It's fine. I can sleep in the carriage. Han Yunshi insisted. Long Fei Ye's lonely eyes made her not want to delay any longer. She couldn't wait to find Bai Yanqing to settle the score. Uncle Chung was also impatient. He couldn't rest easy until he destroyed Deacon Jin's mouth. He immediately went to find Jia Dai to tell him. Jia Dai naturally agreed and immediately went to arrange a carriage. However, just as he finished preparing everything, Su Donglin suddenly appeared out of thin air. Elder Jia, long time no see. Su Donglin hugged his sword and leaned against the wall. Jia Dai was surprised to see him. Your Highness is here too. His Highness is still at the black market. I just came to tell you that the princess is used to riding in His Highness' carriage. You have to arrange a comfortable one for her. If the princess is bumped. Before Su Donglin could finish, Jia Dai nodded repeatedly. Understood, understood. I've already instructed the West Jade Garden to prepare a room in Bright Moon Hotel for the princess. Only then did Su Donglin disappear, satisfied. Just like that, Han Yunshi and the others rushed to West Jade Garden through the night, while Long Fei Yi met with Chu Tianyin at East Origin Hall. I spent a lot of effort to find a way to have that goshawk lead the way. Unfortunately, by the time I got there, he was already gone, Chu Tianyin said calmly. These days, he didn't pay attention to the political situation, nor did he pay attention to the Western Zhou Emperor's mobilization of the army. He was almost entirely focused on finding Gu Beiwei. He kept the goshawk that delivered the letter for Gu Beiwei. He didn't know who raised that goshawk. He used all kinds of methods and found someone who understood the language of beasts. A few days ago, he finally succeeded in getting the goshawk to lead the way. Unfortunately, by the time he found the valley, the courtyard in the valley was already empty. Can you determine when he left? Long Fei asked. At least a month. He should have moved to another place, Chu Tianyin said seriously. Long Fei didn't hide anything and told Chu Tianyin about their situation at Black Tower. Chu Tianyin's brows furrowed deeper as he listened. If that's the case, then it's very likely that Bai Yanqing is near the three-way black market. I've already sent people to secretly search for places where he could easily hide, but unfortunately there's been no news so far, Long Fei Yi said calmly. What do you think about Ning Cheng? Long Fei Yi asked. Chu Tianyin hated Ning Cheng to the core. Even though Long Fei Yi asked him so directly, he still avoided the question. Long Fei Yi, my Chu clan has no right to interfere in the affairs of Eastern and Western Qin, and I have no interest in doing so. I only hope that you can keep your promise and release my two Chu clan elders. Chu Tianyin was quite open-minded. As traitors, the Chu clan had no right to call themselves part of Western Qin's camp. He also knew that the East Qin camp would never truly accept them. He only hoped that Gu Beiwei would be safe. He only hoped that his father and uncle would regain their freedom. This was the only thing he could do for the Chu clan. Long Fei Yi liked Chu Tianyin's attitude very much. He said calmly, I heard that Western Zhou's Emperor Kong Cheng has been mobilizing his troops recently. Does he intend to take away your military power? Chu Tianyin snorted coldly. That depends on whether he can take it away. Very good. You don't have to worry about Gu Beiwei. Just lead your Western Qin troops well. This king will not treat your father and uncle unfairly, Long Fei Yi said calmly. You mean, you really want to go to war with Northern Li? Chu Tianyin asked curiously. Whether it's Northern Li or Jun Yixie, this war is inevitable. It has nothing to do with Eastern and Western Qin, Long Fei Yi said. Although Eastern and Western Qin was currently the biggest problem, he didn't just see the Eastern and Western Qin in front of him. He saw far, and his heart was big. Northern Li and even the winter crow behind the snowy mountains were all in his eyes. He was only temporarily slowing down for the sake of a woman. Chu Tianyin hesitated for a moment, then asked tentatively, Long Fei Yi, I want to see my father. Long Fei Yi looked up and said mercilessly, You'll never see the two of them before it's done. Chu Tianyin took his leave expressionlessly, but he was laughing at himself inwardly. What was wrong with him just now? How could he forget what kind of person Long Fei Yi was? Although he was working with Long Fei Yi, that didn't mean that Long Fei Yi would be merciful to him. He was simply asking to be humiliated. By the time Long Fei Yi finished his business, it was already midnight. He took a bath and was about to go to Myriad Merchant Hall when he remembered that the Shadow Guard had already reported that Han Yunxi was rushing to Western Jade Palace and wouldn't be in the black market tonight. If he rushed over now, it would probably be dawn by the time he caught up. Recalling Han Yunxi's clumsy advances last night and her languid and tired appearance as she lay on the bed this morning, Long Fei Yi couldn't help but smile, and the corners of his mouth curved beautifully. Long Fei Yi couldn't sleep. He strolled into the courtyard and coincidentally bumped into Bailey Mingxiang practicing martial arts in the courtyard. Your Highness. Bailey Mingxiang hurriedly retreated and bowed in greeting. Long Fei Yi made a sound of acknowledgement, then walked past her and left. Bailey Mingxiang didn't dare to look at his face just now, but now she hurriedly looked up, wishing she could imprint his back into her heart. After Long Fei Yi's back disappeared, she turned back and gripped the sword in her hand, practicing even harder. Just as everyone was preparing to capture Bai Yanqing dragged his heavily injured body and hid as he rushed to the valley. His poison skills were exquisite, and his martial arts were superb. There was no need for him to hide like this. However, Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi, whom he had spent so much effort to separate, were still working together. One's poison skills were on par with his, and the other's martial arts were better than his. The two of them working together were his natural enemies. He wasn't stupid enough to confront them directly. He decided to give up his original plan and take Gu Beiwei to Northern Li. However, when he entered the room, he found it was a mess. Gu Beiwei was gone. Chapter 922. Gu Beiwei had disappeared. Bai Yanqing's gaze turned cold. He turned around and went out the door, looking for him like a madman. Gu Beiwei was his biggest trump card. He He was the only trump card he could use against Long, Fei Yi, and Han Yunxi. If he couldn't instigate Long, Fei Yi, and Han Yunxi, he could only rely on Gu Beiwei. Gu Beiwei had actually disappeared. Where was he? Soaring Dragon Valley was such a secluded place. It was almost cut off from the outside world. How did Gu Beiwei escape? Not only was Gu Beiwei heavily injured, he was also poisoned. How did he escape from the poison guards lying in ambush around him? Furthermore, why did he escape? Could it be that he had discovered something? Guards! Guards! Bai Yanqing stood in the courtyard and shouted. Unfortunately, there was no response. He was even more incredulous. He went out of the courtyard and searched everywhere. Very quickly, he found a pile of corpses in the bamboo forest behind the courtyard. They were all his poison guards. They were all killed in one stroke. Bai Yanqing was stunned. Gu Beiwei definitely didn't have the ability to kill so many poison guards. Therefore, someone must have snuck in and rescued him. Who could it be? How could they avoid the poison guard's poison? How did they find this place? Anger burned in his heart. Anger rushed to his chest. Bai Yanqing suddenly drew his sword and swung it, breaking a few bamboos. He had been tricked in a black tower and escaped in a sorry state. He also found out that Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi didn't turn against each other. These two matters were enough to make him angry. He didn't expect that Gu Beiwei would also go missing. He had plotted for so many years. He had endured for so many years. Where did he go wrong? How did the result turn out like this? The Great War between Eastern and Western Qin should have started. He should have just sat back and watched everything. How could he be reduced to such a sorry state? After venting for a while, Bai Yanqing finally calmed down. He stabbed his sword into the ground and raised his head. His eyes were closed, and a trace of pain flashed across his wrinkled eyebrows. His failure was due to Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi. Why? Why were they able to join hands? Moreover, they weren't working together in an ordinary way. From their intimate actions, anyone could tell that they still had feelings for each other. What right did they have to forget the responsibility on each other's shoulders? On what basis could they forget the enmity between their countries? Why? Why couldn't the woman he loved do it? Why did she still not believe him when he told her the truth, that there was only a misunderstanding between the East and Western Qin, and that someone had sowed discord between them? Why? Why could her daughter use the identity of Western Qin's princess to hook up with the East Qin crown prince? Why couldn't she accept him as a descendant of the Feng clan? Recalling the past, Bai Yanqing, who had originally calmed down, seemed to have gone mad. He swung his sword wildly and madly shouted that name. Mu Xin, Mu Xin, you betrayed me. It was you who betrayed me. Mu Xin, I will never forgive you. Even if you die, I still won't forgive you. Mu Xin, open your eyes and look at your daughter. Mu Xin, tell me why. Why? Mu Xin, I actually lost your daughter. When the entire bamboo forest was cut down, Bai Yanqing threw away his sword, and his entire body fell backwards, heavily falling to the ground. Although his eyes were open, those sharp eyes seemed to have lost focus and were incomparably empty. Bai Yanqing was hidden in the soaring Dragon Valley, but Jun Yixie, who didn't know the truth, was still searching everywhere for his whereabouts. And at this time, Bai Yuqiao and the Black Tower Poison Guard brother Qi had already sent Ning Cheng and Su Xiaoyu to northern Li's Heavenly River City. Bai Yuqiao asked brother Qi to bring Su Xiaoyu to the military camp to find her senior brother first. She herself had something to say to Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng was wearing a hollowed-out mask that covered half of the right side of his face, covering his blind eye. This mask was made of silver and was very exquisite. It was half an open wing, a phoenix feather. Bai Yuqiao kidnapped Ning Cheng all the way here and didn't restrict his freedom. However, Ning Cheng simply couldn't leave, because after Bai Yuqiao cured the poison in his eye, he gave him another strange poison. If he didn't take the antidote for a day, Ning Cheng would feel as if his entire body was being burned until he died. Of course, being restricted by the poison wasn't the real reason why Ning Cheng couldn't leave. Another reason why he kept following Bai Yuqiao was that Bai Yuqiao wanted to take him to see Jun Yixie. Bai Yuqiao said that Jun Yixie didn't know what Bai Yanqing had done in the past year. Bai Yuqiao was afraid that Jun Yixia wouldn't believe her words, so she asked Ning Cheng to testify. She promised that as long as Ning Cheng testified, she would immediately give Ning Cheng the antidote. At this time, the two of them were sitting in a private room in a tea house in Heavenly River City, leaning against the railing. Ning Cheng liked wine and wasn't used to drinking tea, so he hadn't touched it yet. Bai Yuqiao, on the other hand, was carefully tasting the tea, enjoying herself. When she saw Ning Cheng looking out of the window, she secretly looked at Ning Cheng's phoenix feather mask. That mask was personally drawn by Ning Cheng and made her send someone to make it. Hey, the phoenix feather birthmark on Han Yunqi's back looks like this, right? Have you seen it before? Bai Yuqiao had been curious for a long time. Ning Cheng didn't turn around, but his eyes darkened. When do you plan to take me to see Jun Yixia? He had to admit that the relationship between Bai Yanqing and Jun Yixia was beyond his expectations. If there was a gap between the master and disciple, it might be a great opportunity for the D clan. Ning Cheng, you really like Han Yunqi. She even blinded you. What do you like about her? Bai Yuqiao asked curiously. Ning Cheng's hand on the table slowly clenched into a fist. Bai Yuqiao used to be afraid of him, but now she wasn't. After all, Ning Cheng was still restricted by her poison. She was sure that Ning Cheng wouldn't go back to ask Han Yunqi to help him detoxify the poison, but it was too late to go back. Moreover, she was also sure that Ning Cheng would be interested in cooperating with her senior brother. Bai Yuqiao glanced at the clenched fist and continued to smile. Don't tell me you're thinking about the position of Western Qin's Imperial Prince's son-in-law. When Han Yunqi ascends the throne one day, you'll be the D clan's clan leader. Great General Ning would be a good match for her. Ning Cheng. Before Bai Yuqiao could finish speaking, Ning Cheng suddenly grabbed her collar. Bai Yuqiao's entire body fell onto the table, sweeping the tea set off the table. I'm warning you for the last time. Don't ever mention the 3 words Han Yunqi in front of me again. Otherwise, I'll let you know what it means to be truly blind. Ning Cheng warned coldly. Ning Cheng, if you don't let go of me now, I definitely won't give you the antidote today. Bai Yuqiao said angrily. Ning Cheng snorted coldly. This clan leader believes that Jun Yixia will be very willing to help me detoxify the poison. After he finished speaking, he shook off Bai Yuqiao and got up to leave. Bai Yuqiao quickly stopped him. Ning Cheng, you don't understand the relationship between my senior brother and my master, do you? Ning Cheng asked in return. Of course. If you're willing to believe me, I could tell you everything. Bai Yuqiao quickly said. Ning Cheng laughed loudly. Why should I believe you? Fulfill your promise from before. I'll definitely tell you the truth. Bai Yuqiao smiled. She had always been thinking about the sum of money that Ning Cheng had promised her. She still hadn't gotten the rest of the money. If she got it, senior brother would definitely be pleasantly surprised. Ning Cheng sneered. Nonsense. Bai Yuqiao was angry. Ning Cheng, I'm not even going to argue with you when you lied to me. Are you going to renege on your debt? Bai Yanqing was lured here by Han Yunqi, not you. You should thank the heavens that I didn't ask you to repay the debt. Ning Cheng really didn't want to waste his breath on this kind of little girl. Since they were already in Tiana City, rather than wasting his breath on Bai Yuqiao, he might as well go find Jun Yixia. Helpless, Bai Yuqiao stopped him again. Fine, I don't want that sum of money. You can listen to my senior brother and my master story first. It won't be too late to leave after that. Why are you telling me so much? Ning Cheng was really curious. Because I want my senior brother to get rid of my master and not be deceived again. Don't be fooled by my master like a fool, and still respect him like a father. Bai Yuqiao said seriously. Ning Cheng, as long as you can convince my senior brother to cooperate with you, you'll have a chance of winning whether it's against the Northern Li imperial family or against the Long Fei Yi. You should give up on Han Yunqi. Bai Yuqiao's eyes narrowed as she said seriously. You're working so hard to be loyal to her. Why don't you conquer the country yourself and make her submit? A woman like Han Yunqi would only like a man like Long Fei Yi. How could she like a slave like you? Ning Cheng slowly pulled away from Bai Yuqiao and gave Bai Yuqiao a meaningful look. I don't mind telling you that the reason my senior brother has always been under the control of the Northern Dynasty's emperors and didn't resist is because he has always been waiting for my master. Bai Yuqiao had been hiding all along the way, but when she arrived in Northernly, she asked around about the situation in Northernly. She had a thorough understanding of Jun Yixie's situation and the current situation in Northernly. She also guessed that Long Fei Yi and Ning Cheng had a lot of thoughts of sowing discord among the Northern Dynasty's emperors. She sneered. Haha, my senior brother can't command his troops. Long Fei Yi will definitely underestimate my senior brother's power in Northernly. Hearing this, Ning Cheng's eyes lit up. Bai Yuqiao's analysis was very correct. Long Fei Yi definitely wouldn't have thought of the wonderful relationship between Jun Yixie and Bai Yanqing. It seemed that Jun Yixie really couldn't command his troops and wasn't really under the control of the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Ning Cheng had been blinded in one eye. His left eye seemed to be even darker and more hidden. Regarding this matter, only he knew what his attitude towards Bai Yuqiao's persuasion was. Bai Yuqiao looked into Ning Cheng's eyes. She couldn't help but admit that even though this man was blind in one eye, he was still dignified, noble, and incomparably handsome. Family head Ning, please consider it carefully. Bai Yuqiao was very patient and also very confident. Ning Cheng sat down and lightly said, Speak. This family head is all ears. Bai Yuqiao spoke from a young age. For as long as she could remember, her senior brother had been at the 100 Poisons sect. He treated his master like a father, respectful and obedient. The more Ning Cheng listened, the deeper his eyes became, as if he was calculating something. By the time Bai Yuqiao finished speaking, the sky had already darkened. Ning Cheng's complexion also began to turn ugly. The poison had flared up. Bai Yuqiao straightforwardly handed over the antidote. After Ning Cheng swallowed it, his complexion improved a little. Let's go. I'll take you to see my senior brother. Bai Yuqiao's excitement overflowed. He hadn't seen his senior brother for a long time and had missed him so much that he was about to go crazy. Ning Cheng stretched out a hand. Return Han Yunxi's golden needle to me, and I'll go with you. The golden needle that Ning Cheng spoke of was the one that had pierced into his eye. Han Yunxi's golden needle was very special, so Bai Yuqiao had hidden it away. Bai Yuqiao was suspicious. However, Ning Cheng coldly said, This family head must keep it well and constantly remind you of the revenge of that needle. Chapter 923, Revenge of a Needle. Bai Yuqiao looked at the phoenix feather mask on Ning Cheng's face again, half believing and half doubting. However, she still straightforwardly handed over the golden needle to Ning Cheng. In any case, she could not figure out how the needle was made and what mysteries it contained. Bai Yuqiao quickly brought Ning Cheng to the military camp on the outskirts of Tiana City. Because Brother Qi had already informed them, when they arrived at the entrance of the military camp, they saw Jun Yixie personally standing at the entrance to welcome them. Bai Yuqiao saw the familiar figure from afar, and her heartbeat sped up. She unconsciously stopped and took a few more glances. In front of her senior brother, she might not dare to look at him like this. On the contrary, she only dared to show her admiration from afar. Ning Cheng was not in the mood to pay attention to Bai Yuqiao's strange behavior. He looked at Jun Yixie and walked forward step by step. A meaningful sneer flashed past his eyes. He was now considered a prisoner. Since Jun Yixie personally came to the entrance to welcome him, it meant that Jun Yixie also had the intention to join forces with him. As long as Jun Yixie had the intention, everything would be easy to handle. When he got closer, he saw Jun Yixie in a fiery red riding outfit. He was handsome and valiant. These days in the military camp, he who had lived like a prince had lost a lot of weight and tan a lot. His facial features were even more profound, as if they were carved by God. The blood-red eyebrow nail at the corner of his eyebrows, hidden under his fine bangs, looked like a trace of blood, but also like a cluster of flames, full of a mysterious aura. The wind suddenly rose, lifting his cloak and also his body. He was insufferably arrogant. Even if he personally came out of the camp to welcome Ning Cheng, Jun Yixie's attitude was still high and mighty when he walked in front of him. If it were anyone else, they would have been intimidated by Jun Yixie's powerful aura. However, Ning Cheng was different. Unlike Jun Yixie's noble attire, Ning Cheng's simple black attire made him look a lot more down and out. However, when he raised his head, his cold and arrogant gaze was enough to look down on everything about Jun Yixie. The wind on the grassland blew harder and harder. The two tall and proud men stood face to face. Their eyes met, and the silent contest had already begun. Jun Yixie waited for Ning Cheng to speak first. Ning Cheng also waited for Jun Yixie to speak first. The two of them were silent, but their gazes were not quiet at all. They were scrutinizing each other, but neither of them moved. Fortunately, Bai Yuqiao quickly came over. Seeing this, she hurriedly mediated. "Senior brother, this is the D clan's patriarch and also the great general of the Ning army, Ning Cheng." However, Jun Yixie did not say anything. Bai Yuqiao hurriedly said, "Great General Ning, this is my senior brother, Jun Yixie." Ning Cheng also did not say anything. Bai Yuqiao was anxious and did not know what to do. Suddenly, Jun Yixie fiercely kicked at Ning Cheng. Almost at the same time, Ning Cheng also kicked out and blocked Jun Yixie's foot. The two of them were in a deadlock. Jun Yixie's eyes turned cold, and he immediately used his strength. Ning Cheng's martial arts were not as good as Jun Yixie's. He did not directly resist, but cleverly avoided. However, Jun Yixie did not let go. His body suddenly rose into the air, and his feet kicked one in front and one back. Ning Cheng repeatedly retreated, but was accidentally kicked to the ground by Jun Yixie. Even so, his gaze was still cold as he coldly scrutinized Jun Yixie. Ning Cheng's gaze made Jun Yixie very uncomfortable. He had already kicked Ning Cheng to the ground, but he did not stop. He strode forward and ruthlessly kicked at the mask on Ning Cheng's face. Ning Cheng used his right hand to grab Jun Yixie's foot and held on tightly. Jun Yixie could not break free, so he simply did not struggle. His other foot tapped on the ground and used the force to jump up, still kicking at Ning Cheng's face. Ning Cheng could clearly use his left hand to grab Jun Yixie's foot. As long as he grabbed it, Jun Yixie's feet would be restricted and he would lose for sure. Jun Yixie's arrogance was exposed, while Ning Cheng's arrogance was restrained. Ning Cheng could not win in martial arts, but he could win in strategy. However, even though the opportunity was right in front of him, Ning Cheng still did not win. His left hand was always by his side. His palm was pressed on the ground, and he did not even raise it. He concealed it so well that even Jun Yixie mistakenly thought that he did not have time to make a move and did not deliberately not make a move. Jun Yixie's kick landed on Ning Cheng's phoenix feather mask. It did not break but fell off. Ning Cheng's blind eye was exposed. His eyeball was fine, and the shape of his eye was still good. However, it was empty and lifeless without focus. The eyes were the most difficult to fake. No matter how powerful an expert was, they could only fake both eyes and pretend to be blind. One eye was normal, and the other was blind. No one could fake it. Jun Yixie carefully looked at Ning Cheng's blind eye. Only then did he believe that he was really blind. Hee, Han Yunqi is really ruthless. Jun Yixie sneered as he reached out to Ning Cheng, wanted to pull him up. Ning Cheng did not even look at Jun Yixie's hand. He picked up the phoenix feather mask, wiped it clean with his sleeve, and put it back on. Only then did he stand up and pat the dust off his body. He and Jun Yixie were about the same height, but his back looked more arrogant and imposing than Jun Yixie's. Jun Yixie calmly withdrew his hand and sneered. "Phoenix feather?" Han Yunqi's birthmark looks like this? The Nether clan has a map. They rely on phoenix feather to find people. As Ning Cheng spoke, he looked at Jun Yixie. What Bai Yanqing also knows about phoenix feather's existence? Didn't he tell you? You don't know that phoenix feather's birthmark looks like this? Bai Yuqiao became suspicious. She thought that she must be overthinking. How could Ning Cheng have seen Han Yunqi's birthmark? Jun Xie, who was originally arrogant, suddenly became gloomy. He turned to look at Bai Yuqiao. After Brother Qi brought Su Xiaoyu here, he told him everything that his master had been doing these days. However, he was not willing to believe it, unless his master told him personally. Unless his master admitted that he had been using him all this time, he would not believe it. Ning Cheng's question was undoubtedly because he knew about their relationship. It must have been Bai Yuqiao who told him. Bai Yuqiao had already guessed that her senior brother would have this kind of attitude, so she needed Ning Cheng's help. She lowered her head, not daring to meet Jun Xie's scrutinizing gaze. She hoped that Ning Cheng would quickly help her out. Ning Cheng sneered. You were tricked by Bai Yanqing. You can only blame your own stupidity. Why? Are you blaming a little girl? You have no right to interfere in my sex affairs. Jun Xie was still cold as he stared at Bai Yuqiao. Ning Cheng leisurely patted the grass in his hand and sneered. Bai Yuqiao, since your senior brother intends to continue being the Feng clan's lackey, why do you have to worry so much about him? Ning Cheng finished speaking and turned to leave. If Jun Xie remained stubborn with Bai Yanqing, there would be no possibility of cooperation between him and Jun Xie. Bai Yuqiao was anxious. Senior brother, Master has hidden so many things from you. Why are you still so stubborn? When I was in the Winter Crow clan, how could Master tell me everything? Jun Xie retorted cold. He has a sense of propriety. Could it be that he has to tell us everything? Bai Yuqiao smiled bitterly. Senior brother, Master has long planned this. Do you still remember the bloodstains you brought back from Fishing Boat Island? That was Bailey Mingxiang's blood, the blood of the Mermaid clan. Master has been studying those bloodstains behind your back. It was from those bloodstains that Master guessed Long Fei Ye's identity. Jun Xie's eyes darkened when he heard this. Senior brother, do you know why Master knows Han Yunxi's identity? Because Han Yunxi is a direct descendant of the poison sect, and so is Master. I saw Master use the poison storage space with my own eyes. It can't be faked. Also, Helian Zuexiang of Tianning's Han Estate was actually a spy that Master planted in the Han Estate many years ago. 20 years ago, Master already knew Han Yunxi's identity and the whereabouts of the Western Qin princess. Why did Master tell you? Bai Yuqiao asked next. Jun Xie's heart gave a start. 20 years ago, Master had been entrusted by his father to bring him to Northern Li. He had promised his father to raise him well, so he could fulfill the Black Clan's unfulfilled wish and unite Cloud Realm Continent. If Master knew about Han Yunxi's identity 20 years ago, why didn't he tell his father? Why didn't he tell him? Master, how could he do this? Bai Yuqiao was afraid that Jun Xie wouldn't believe him, so he quickly shot a look at Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng gave a cold snort. Han Yunxi only found out about Bai Yanqing's identity because of the poison storage space. Bai Yanqing used the poison storage space back at Lost Void Lake. Jun Xie looked at him as if he wanted to say something, but held back in the end. Senior brother, when Master and I pretended to be loyal to Western Qin, Master told Han Yunxi and Ning Cheng that you were the head of the Wind Clan, and he was only your servant. Senior brother, think carefully. Master hid everything from you, and even pushed you to the position of head of the Wind Clan. What were his intentions? Senior brother, if not for Han Yunxi and Ning Cheng exposing Master's identity, you would be the target of public criticism right now. Whether it's Han Yunxi or Long Fei Yi, they won't let you off. You have to take all the blame for the Wind Clan. You're a sucker. Senior brother, if you don't believe me, Ning Cheng can testify. Ning Cheng was also there at that time. Bai Yuqiao persuaded repeatedly. Jun Xie's heart finally started to hurt. It hurt a lot. Master, whom he had always regarded as his father, hid it from him so bitterly. If it was something that happened in the past 1 or 2 years, he would still be willing to believe it. But how could he forgive something that happened 20 years ago? Master had clearly lied to him from the moment he took him in as a disciple. Master pushed him to the position of head of the Wind Clan. So where did he intend to put the Black Clan? Bai Yuqiao and Ning Cheng didn't know that he was a descendant of the Black Clan, but he should be clear about it himself. Jun Yixie was silent. At this time, Ning Cheng's face was full of suspicion. Bai Yuqiao's words just now reminded him of something. Ning Cheng, say something. Bai Yuqiao stomped his feet anxiously. Ning Cheng then slowly looked at Jun Yixie and said, Jun Yixie, Bai Yanqing hasn't contacted you yet, right? He also didn't tell you that Gu Beiwei is in his hands, right? Jun Yixie didn't say anything. Ning Cheng asked again, Jun Yixie, if Bai Yanqing really wants your warhorses so much, why hasn't he shown up yet when you were grounded in Tianhe City by the Northern Dynasty's emperors? What is he hiding from? Jun Yixie was immersed in his own despair and didn't answer. Bai Yuqiao hurriedly replied, Master and Senior Brother agreed that Senior Brother would only be in charge of bringing the warhorses back. After killing the Crown Prince and Second Prince, Master would help him deal with the Northern Dynasty's emperors. But Master went back on his word. Jun Yixie looked at Bai Yuqiao coldly again, but didn't reprimand him. Chapter 924. Hearing Bai Yuqiao's explanation, Ning Cheng gave a cold laugh. Jun Yixie, you've really been played by Bai Yanqing. The Northern Dynasty's emperors are not fools. You killed the Crown Prince and Second Prince and controlled 100,000 warhorses. How can Bai Yanqing convince the Northern Dynasty's emperors to believe you? This is simply a joke, and you believe it? Jun Yixie's eyes flashed with displeasure as he retorted, Even if Master can't convince the Northern Dynasty's emperors, the Northern Dynasty's emperors may not be able to restrict me. As long as I give the order, at least half of the Northernly cavalry will listen to me. What about the army's pay? Ningqing asked back. These two words made Jun Yixie speechless, and Bai Yuqiao suddenly understood. Thinking of the words she said to Ning Cheng in the tea house, she felt ashamed. The situation in Northernly, her senior brother's current situation, Ningqing saw it more clearly than her. Her senior brother could indeed rebel at any time, but her senior brother didn't have any pay. He could at most hold on for a month. After a month, it would be winter and there would be no more food. The horses would starve and the soldiers would flee. This was her senior brother's fatal flaw. Jun Yixie, Bai Yanqing should be very clear on how much food you have. So, for every day he doesn't come, you have to be in a deadlock with the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Bai Yanqing doesn't want to take you to conquer the world. He just wants to use you to hold back Northernly. He wants to let my Ning family army have no worries and use all our strength to fight to the death with East Qin. Ningqing seriously said. Bai Yuqiao nodded repeatedly. Ningqing's analysis was right. If Han Yunqi hadn't exposed Master's identity at that time, everything would have happened as Ningqing said. Eastern and Western Qin were embroiled in a chaotic war, and Northernly was embroiled in civil strife. Even if Eastern and Western Qin suffered heavy losses, Jun Yixie and the Northern Dynasty's emperors would not be able to take advantage of the situation because they would also suffer heavy losses. Jun Yixie finally came to a realization. He muttered to himself, Master, he's helping you. Ningqing nodded helplessly. In a sense, Bai Yanqing was indeed helping the D clan. Unfortunately, he had discovered it too late. Unfortunately, he had been frightened by Jun Yixie's 100,000 warhorses. If it wasn't for Bai Yuqiao's words reminding him, when he discovered the contradiction in Bai Yanqing's actions, he wouldn't have thought of this point. Why would Master help you? Jun Yixie couldn't accept this fact. However, Ningqing knew in his heart that although Bai Yanqing seemed to be helping the D clan, he actually wanted the D clan to have no worries and go all out to fight East Qin. Bai Yanqing played a large game of chess. He schemed against Long Fei Yi, Han Yunqi, and even him and Jun Yixie. There was only one goal, which was to have Eastern and Western Qin fight to the death with no chance of reconciliation. Han Yunqi's words once again echoed in Ningqing's ears. Han Yunqi questioned him. Didn't you say you would give everyone a chance to redeem themselves? You even used the red barbarian cannons. What is the meaning of this? That's right. Back then, Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi both suspected Bai Yanqing's intentions. They both suspected that the enmity between Eastern and Western Qin was a misunderstanding, but he just didn't believe it. He just didn't want to believe it. Now that he knew that Bai Yanqing was hiding things from Jun Yixie, and Bai Yuqiao brought it up, he couldn't help but be suspicious. But he couldn't figure it out. If the Wen clan was the one who instigated the civil war between Eastern and Western Qin, then what were they after? Were they after Cloud Realm Continent? Judging from Bai Yanqing's actions, he didn't care about Cloud Realm Continent at all. He just wanted to throw the continent into chaos. Ning Cheng was immersed in his own thoughts while Jun Yixie laughed loudly. Ning Cheng, don't tell me my master is truly loyal to Western Qin. I'm telling you, that's impossible. It was obvious that Jun Yixie hadn't realized Bai Yanqing's true motives. A complicated look flickered past Ning Cheng's eyes before he asked, Jun Yixie, you've been his disciple for over 20 years. What do you think he wants to do? What did Master want to do? Master had always told him that the Wind Clan would help the Black Clan seize Northern Li's armored cavalry and take over Cloud Realm Continent. Just like how the Black Clan had instigated the civil war between Eastern and Western Qin, the Wind Clan was the Black Clan's best ally. But now he couldn't believe his own lies. Ning Cheng turned back and approached Jun Yixie step by step. Tell me, what does he want to do? No matter what he wants to do, he'll never pledge loyalty to Western Qin. Never. Jun Yixie was forced into a corner. Bai Yuqiao watched from the sidelines. He wanted to interrupt a few times, but held back in the end. Senior brother had never been forced into such a corner in his entire life. Master was probably the only thing that could truly hurt him. Bai Yuqiao steeled her heart and kept quiet. She only hoped that Ning Cheng could be even more ruthless and force senior brother to wake up and scold him to his senses. But Bai Yuqiao was wrong. Ning Cheng's every word was meant to test Jun Yixie. He couldn't see through Bai Yanqing, so he hoped to find some clues from Jun Yixie's reactions. Jun Yixie, you've been fooled by him like a fool. You've been fooled for over 20 years. Why are you so sure he won't? Ning Cheng gave a cold laugh. Jun Yixie, are you pretending to be a fool, or are you really a fool? Jun Yixie suddenly grabbed Ning Cheng's collar. Ning Cheng, let me tell you, the Wind Clan has already betrayed the Western Qin royal family. Not now, but during the Great Qin Empire Civil War, the Wind Clan had already betrayed the Western Qin royal family. When these words were said, Ning Cheng was immediately stunned. The civil war between Western Qin and Eastern Qin was caused by the flooding of the Sha River. The Wind Clan had sent a letter saying that the East Qin Crown Prince wanted to protect the iron mine and destroy the dam, diverting the flood downstream. When the East Qin royal family sent the Black Clan to destroy the dam, the Western Qin royal family sent the Wind Clan's army to stop them. It was because of the Wind Clan's defeat that when the Civil War began, the Western Qin royal family did not have the advantage and were destroyed in just a single year. That night at the border of the battlefield, Long Fei Yi had denied this story. Long Fei Yi denied protecting the iron mine. Long Fei Yi had said that the East Qin royal family had only sent the Black Clan to steal the iron mine, and the Black Clan's army had been ambushed by the Wind Clan, causing the two armies to fight. If the Wind Clan had betrayed the Western Qin royal family in the past, could it be that the Wind Clan had given false information, slandering the East Qin royal family? Could it be that the Wind Clan had deliberately ambushed the Black Clan's army and caused the civil war? How could the Wind Clan betray the Western Qin royal family in the past? Ning Cheng said in a shocked voice. Jun Yixie gave a cold laugh. Ning Cheng, the Wind and Black Clans have always been allies. The Great Qin Empire Civil War in the past was caused by the Sha River flood, caused by the conflict between the Wind and Black Clans. Think about it carefully. Hee. Did Ning Cheng still think about it? Jun Yixie's words confirmed his guess. East and Western Qin had really been instigated. Everything had been instigated by the Wind and Black Clans. For so many years, so many people had been obsessed with the national enmity, not the national enmity between East and Western Qin. It was the Wind Clan and Black Clan. The ones who should bear the hatred were them. Ning Cheng fell back several steps. How could he accept this fact? For so many years, the D clan's obsession and his obsession had all become a joke. Truly laughable. Ning Chung shook his head again and again. Jun Yixie pressed forward step by step. Even if my master betrayed the Black Clan, he would not be loyal to Western Qin. Ning Chung, you don't need to worry about my sect's internal affairs. I'll only ask you one thing. Are you interested in cooperating with my Black Clan? Black Clan? Jun Yixie was actually a descendant of the Black Clan. Ning Chung was shocked. Bai Yuqiao was dumbfounded. However, after the shock, they quickly understood. Jun Yixie was a descendant of the Black Clan. No wonder Bai Yanqing took him in as a disciple and trained him for so many years. The Black Clan understood the language of beasts and were good at taming beasts. Those horse trainers in the Winter Crow War Horse team are from your Black Clan? Ning Chung asked seriously. Yes, Jun Yixie admitted generously. He said that he had hired the Winter Crow race's horse trainers to take care of the war horses. In fact, it was just a cover to deceive people. Those horse trainers were from the Black Clan. It was because of his beast taming skills that he was worshipped by the Winter Crow royal family and easily bought back 90,000 war horses. Ning Chung was deeply moved. He never thought that the truth would be like this. Long Fei, you must be very puzzled as to how Jun Yixie curried favor with the Winter Crow royal family and brought back war horses. Ning Chung, that bitch Han Yunshi has already thrown herself into Long Fei Ye's arms. Why are you so obsessed with reviving Western Qin? Hee, you must have been blind to let her be your master. Jun Yixie said mockingly. Ning Chung lowered his head and remained silent. Jun Yixie knocked on his phoenix feather mask and said in a mocking tone, What? You're still wearing this thing on your face? Are you trying to show your loyalty or humiliate yourself? Ning Chung slapped Jun Yixie's hand away and still didn't say anything. A trace of suspicion flashed across Jun Yixie's eyes, and he suddenly took off his phoenix feather mask. Just as he was about to throw it away, Ning Chung finally stopped him. He snatched the phoenix feather mask and said coldly, Jun Yixie, I can cooperate with you. The country will belong to you, and Han Yunshi will belong to me. I won't allow you to hurt her. How's that? Bai Yuqiao looked over when she heard this. Although she had guessed it, she still found it hard to believe when she heard Ning Chung admit it himself. No wonder Ning Chung still refused to let go of the D clan when Han Yunshi forgot about the national enmity and hooked up with Long Fei Yi. It turned out that his heart wasn't with Western Qin, but with the Western Qin princess. Jun Yixie burst into laughter. I don't want the country, but I want the beauty. Hee. Han Yunshi's taste is indeed not bad. What a pity. Back then, he had almost gotten Han Yunshi in a moment of impulse. Jun Yixie was still laughing when Ning Chung suddenly threw a punch at Jun Yixie's mouth. Jun Yixie didn't expect this, and his entire face was knocked askew. He fell to the ground and spat out 2 teeth. Ning Chung. Bai Yuqiao rushed over angrily, but Ning Chung kicked him away. He was furious. Before Jun Yixie could get up, he grabbed Jun Yixie and threw another punch at him. However, Jun Yixie blocked the punch and sneered. I really haven't had a taste of her. But, Long Fei Yi is probably sick of her. I'm not interested in Long Fei Yi's broken shoes. If you want, I'll keep you. You have so much strength, save it for Long Fei Yi. Come at me. Who do you think you are? What Jun Yixie said did make some sense. However, Ning Chung didn't know where he got the strength from. He broke free from Jun Yixie's grip and punched Jun Yixie in the face again, sending him flying. The needle in his left hand pierced deeply into his flesh as he clenched his fist. However, Ning Chung didn't feel any pain. His heart felt worse than his palm. Looking at Jun Yixie's face, he suddenly realized that he was just like Jun Yixie. They were both good-for-nothings. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.